Chapter 668. However, most of the time when Tian brought up Lin Jie, Shuyao didn't say anything at all. Instead, she continued munching on her apple, sipping on her yogurt, watching her drama series, and munching on potato chips. Just as Shuyao had said, after she left the clubhouse, she found a new part-time job, tutoring English for Year 3 students who lived in a school district near her school. As for her salary, it was nowhere near what she was getting from the clubhouse, but Shuyao had no better options, so she could only muddle through it. There were no classes on Saturdays and Sundays, so Shuyao's tutoring time was slightly longer than usual. It just so happened that the students she had to tutor were given a lot of homework by the school, so her time was slightly longer than usual. She tutored from afternoon to night. At around 8:00, Shuyao's phone rang. It was her mother. She stared at the screen for a while, not picking up the call. In truth, her mother had called her several times recently, but she didn't pick up any of them. The student who was doing his homework was distracted by her phone. He turned to look at Shuyao, only to see her staring at the screen in a daze. He couldn't help but ask, "Sis Yao Yao, are you going to pick up the call?" Recovering from her daze, Shuyao gently told the student, "Continue with your homework." After that, she put her phone into silent mode and placed it in her bag. By the time Shuyao was done with her tutoring, it was already 10:00 at night. As it was getting late, the students' parents were a little worried. Furthermore, it wasn't too far from the school, so they sent Shuyao off with the intention of taking a stroll. On the way back to her dormitory room, Shuyao took out her phone to take a look. There were a total of 8 missed calls, all from her mother. Just as she was hesitating whether she should return the call or not, another call came in. It was from her mother as well. Shuyao hesitated for a moment before answering the call. "Yao Yao, what's wrong with you? Why aren't you picking up the call?" As it was a video call, Shuyao's mother noticed that Shuyao was still outside, so she spoke up once more. "Why aren't you back yet? Did you go out to play? With who? Jie?" It wasn't that her mother hadn't asked her similar questions in the past, but as she had witnessed her quarrel with her father, her mother's words left her feeling a little uncomfortable. However, she still replied softly, "No, I just came out to buy something." "Oh, is that so?" Shuyao's mother didn't linger on the matter for too long. She raised her phone and pointed it at the various boxes of wedding candies on the table and said, "Take a look. These are the samples that someone sent over today. Which one do you like? Your father and I went to the Lin family this afternoon, and Grandpa Lin said that we live in the suburbs. After you married into the Lin family, he noticed that it's inconvenient for your father and I to live in a place near their place. So, he arranged a place for us to live in. They live in the heart of the city, so it's bound to be expensive. So, your father said that the smallest house would do, just big enough for the two of us. Speaking of which, Grandpa Lin really treats our family." Chapter 669. What's wrong? As Shuyao's mother flipped through the invitation cards on the table, she said, "I think this one is pretty good. What do you think?" "Yao Yao." Ignoring her mother's words, Shuyao called out once more, "Mom." Sensing that something was amiss with her daughter, Shuyao's mother turned to look at her phone camera and asked, "What's wrong?" Shuyao was silent for a moment before replying, "Can I not get married?" "What nonsense are you spouting? Which woman doesn't want to get married?" "No, I mean, can I not marry Lin Jie?" After saying those words, Shuyao took a deep breath and decided to voice out her thoughts. "Can you not hold this marriage? Also, you and my dad should give up on that house as well. If you really want a house, I'll buy it for you when I earn some money." Before Shuyao could finish her words, her father's face suddenly appeared on the phone screen. "Shuyao, what nonsense are you talking about? What do you mean by giving up on the marriage? It's already decided. Do you think you can just give up on it just because you say so? Let me tell you, it's your fortune that the Lin family has taken a liking to you. Don't be so stubborn, there are plenty of women who yearn for such an opportunity. Did you get into a fight with Jej? Let me tell you, don't provoke him. You have to coax him. If he doesn't want you anymore. Shi Yao's eyes reddened, and before her father could finish his words, she had already hung up the call. Soon, her phone vibrated once more. It was her mother again. Shi Yao hung up the call, but her phone vibrated once more, so she switched it off. Peace returned to her hands, but Shi Yao's heart felt even more sorrowful. She stood on the sidewalk for a moment before running to the field not too far away. Squatting down in a corner, she began crying. It was true that Lin Jej hadn't been back to Ji University recently, but since it was the weekend, he had promised to play basketball with Xie Shangzhou and Lu Benlai, so he went to school after lunch. After the game, the three of them returned to their dormitory room and rested for a while before taking a shower and changing into clean clothes. After that, they headed out for dinner. Lin Jej drove over, and due to the convenience of having a car, the three of them decided to eat at a place a little further away from the school. There was a traffic jam on the way there, and it was already 8:00 by the time they finished eating and returned to school. It was almost 10 o'clock. Initially, Lin Jej was intending to leave Xia Shangzhou and Lu Benlai at the entrance of the academy before heading home. However, he suddenly remembered that he needed to copy some information from the dormitory room's computer, so he parked his car by the roadside and entered the academy together with them. On his way back to his dormitory room, he had to pass through the field. Just like that, he was stopped by a young lady who forcefully stuffed a light pink box into his hands. Xie Shangzhou leaned over. "What is it? Let me have a look." Lu Benlai also walked over and said, "It's not like it's for you, so what are you looking at?" Xie Shangzhou, "Then why are you here?" Lu Benlai, "I came over to look at your envious face." Xie Shangzhou wanted to kick Lu Benlai. "You bastard." Lu Benlai nimbly dodged to the side, but just as he was about to retaliate, a figure squatting at a dark corner of the field caught his attention. He stared at the figure for a moment, and as if confirming something, he turned to Lin Jej and asked, "Boss, isn't that little Junior?" Xie Shangzhou looked in the direction that Lu Benlai was pointing at. "That's right, it's little Junior. Why is she sitting there alone? She seems to be crying." Chapter 670. As Lu Benlai and Xia Shangzhou spoke up one after another, Lin Jej raised his head to look at the field. "It's really her. It's as if she's met with a sad event. She looks so sad and helpless." With just a single glance, Lin Jej felt as if someone had stabbed a knife into his heart. The pain was so excruciating that he couldn't even breathe. "Lu Benlai, what's wrong with little Junior? She seems to be crying very sadly." "That's right," Xie Shangzhou replied. He turned to Lin Jej and asked, "Boss, aren't you going to take a look?" Lin Jej didn't respond to his words. His gaze was still fixed on the slender figure on the field. "Boss." Xie Shangzhou was just about to speak up to warn Lin Jej when Lu Benlai kicked him lightly. He angrily turned his head around to berate Lu Benlai, but Lu Benlai shot him a hashuf emoji to stop him. Seeing that Xie Shangzhou had calmed down, Lu Benlai pointed his finger at Lin Jej. Xie Shangzhou followed Lu Benlai's gaze, and it was only then that he realized that Lin Jej's leisurely demeanor after returning from lunch had somehow turned stiff and cold. It was as if the scene had frozen. Shi Yao was crying in the distance, and the three of them were standing there. A moment later, a gust of night breeze blew past, and Lin Jej snapped out of his daze. He retracted his gaze and said, "Let's go." Then, he began making his way toward the male dormitory. It was only after Lin Jiej had walked far away that Xia Shangzhou and Lu Benlai finally recovered from their daze. They stared at one another for a very long time before finally making their way back to the dormitory room together. As they did so, they began whispering to one another. Lu Benlai, am I seeing things? Our boss is actually ignoring little Junior. Xia Shangzhou, what's going on? Hasn't our boss always followed little Junior's lead? Why is he so cold and emotionless today? A man's heart is truly like a needle at the bottom of the sea. Lu Benlai, I don't know. I didn't think there was anything wrong with our boss this afternoon either. It looks more like a couple breaking up, Xia Shangzhou. Then tell me, does this mean that I can treat little Junior as a goddess again, and then I can pursue little? Before Xia Shangzhou could finish his words, Lin Jiej, who had already gotten what he wanted from the dormitory room, bumped right into the duo. Xia Shangzhou hurriedly corrected himself. Because of his guilty conscience, his voice was incredibly loud. Boss. As if he didn't see Xia Shangzhou and Xia Shangzhou, Lin Jiej brushed past them and left. When he reached the spot where he had stopped earlier, he turned around to look at the field. Shi Yao was still there, and she was still crying. His footsteps slowed down slightly, but he did not stop in the end. Instead, he forcefully pursed his lips and strode forward. Walking out of the school, Lin Jiej opened the car door and got into the car. He fastened his seatbelt, and just as he was about to step on the accelerator, he suddenly undid the seatbelt he had just fastened a second ago. It was getting late, and Shi Yao finally managed to stop crying. She knew that it was about time for her to return to her dormitory room, but she was still reluctant to do so. Chapter 671. Shi Yao thought that she was hallucinating, and she was stunned for a moment before she realized that everything was real. She raised her head and saw that it was Leng Nuan. She was stunned for a moment before she spoke up. Nuan. Leng Nuan wasn't in a hurry to speak. Instead, she took 2 steps forward and sat down beside Shi Yao. After which, she opened the bag in her hand and took out a cup of steaming hot milk tea. She passed it to Shi Yao and said, "Drink something hot, lest you catch a cold." Shi Yao still hadn't recovered from the shock of Leng Nuan's sudden appearance, so she didn't take it. Leng Nuan took the straw and inserted it into the milk tea before passing it back to Shi Yao. "Your favorite milk green tea. It's a little from their shop." Shi Yao snapped out of her daze and held the milk tea with both hands. The warmth of the milk tea flowed from her palms all the way to the bottom of her heart, lifting her mood significantly. It was already very late, and there wasn't anyone on the field anymore. Neither Shi Yao nor Leng Nuan spoke a word, and they simply sat there quietly. Time gradually passed, and after Shi Yao had drunk more than half of the milk tea, she turned around to look at Leng Nuan, who hadn't asked her why she was crying at all. She asked softly, "Nuan, why aren't you asking me anything?" "Ask you what?" Hearing Shi Yao's voice, Leng Nuan replied nonchalantly, "Ask you why you're crying. What's there to ask? Haven't you always said that friends should learn to respect one another? When you want to talk about something, you'll talk about it, and when you don't want to talk about it, you should give the other party enough space." This was indeed what Leng Nuan had been saying in the past. When she said it, she didn't feel much of it. But now that she was hearing those words, Shi Yao felt an inexplicable warmth in her heart. Perhaps it was because the matter had been weighing heavily on her heart for many days, but with Leng Nuan's silent accompaniment, Shi Yao couldn't help but pour out her heart softly. "Nuan, do you know? I've always felt that I have a happy family. Although it's not rich, my parents love each other, and my family is harmonious." Speaking up to this point, Shi Yao suddenly recalled the day she returned from Chengdu, the day she heard her parents arguing at the entrance of her house. She pressed her lips together for a moment before continuing. "I never thought that there would be a day when such a tragic turn of events would befall me. My parents, they were going to divorce many years ago. My dad has already abandoned me since many years ago. If not for Grandpa Lin suddenly coming to our house and saying that I'm willing to marry Lin Jiej and giving my parents a betrothal gift of 1 million RMB, my father would have really abandoned me. Ling Wan knew that what Shi Yao needed at this moment wasn't words of consolation but silent companionship. Thus, she didn't say anything at all, choosing to listen quietly to the conversation. Nguyen, did you know? When I heard the news, I felt like my whole world was collapsing. The family I thought I had was all fake. Chapter 672. I've always thought that Lin Jiej and I aren't from the same world, and now, I feel like the gap between us has grown even further. I just want to return the money. Regardless of whether I cancel the engagement or not, I want to return the million yuan that my parents took from me. It's not that I don't like money, and it's not that I'm being unreasonable, but I just feel that my parents shouldn't have asked for the betrothal gift in such a manner. Wan, you have no idea how good Grandpa Lin and the others are to me. In the past, when Lin Jiej ignored me, both Grandpa Lin and Sis Jai were always on my side. It was then that I felt that my parents had let them down. And in just a single night, I felt like I wasn't good enough either. A few days ago, I met Lin Jiej at the clubhouse. He thought that I came here to work because I wanted to cancel the engagement, and he threw a huge tantrum at me. He even said that he'd agree to cancel the engagement with me. Shi Yao, who had been talking to herself for a long time, suddenly stopped at this point. It's no wonder you seemed a little off when you came back that day. Leng Wan finally spoke up. But Yao, it's all a misunderstanding. You just have to explain yourself, forget it. In any case, At this point, Shi Yao's words suddenly came to a halt. She actually, almost told Leng Wan that she wasn't good enough, and that he deserved better. Why would she care so much about whether she was good or not? Leng Wan noticed that Shi Yao had gone silent halfway through her words, so she couldn't help but ask softly. Shi Yao shook her head and lowered her head to sip on her milk tea. Since Shi Yao wasn't going to say anything, Leng Wan didn't pursue the matter either. The two of them continued to sit quietly on the field for a while. Eventually, after finishing her milk tea, Shi Yao's mood had improved significantly after she had confided in Leng Wan. Seeing that it was getting late, she said, Nguyen, shall we head back to the dormitory? Leng Wan nodded. She stood up first and pulled Shi Yao's hand, and the two of them walked side by side toward the female dormitory. Just as they were about to reach the dormitory, Leng Wan suddenly asked, Yao, are you very bothered by the fact that you and Lin Jiej aren't from the same world? Shi Yao was taken aback by Leng Wan's sudden question. Leng Wan waited for a moment, but seeing that the other party wasn't saying a word, she spoke up once more, or perhaps, let me rephrase my question. Do you think that you aren't good enough before Lin Jiej? Shi Yao was stunned once more. However, this time, it wasn't because of Leng Wan but because Leng Wan had actually seen through her thoughts. Yao, you don't have to tell me the answer. You can just tell it to yourself, Leng Wan added. Perhaps she was already moved, but she didn't know it. However, it was no wonder that she was moved. After all, that boy was so outstanding. No one would be able to resist him, right? With such thoughts in mind, Leng Wan sighed softly once more. Yao, I'm actually quite envious of you. Chapter 673. Shi Yao was baffled by Leng Wan's sudden remark of envy. What did she have to be envious of? Overnight, her family was torn apart. Noticing Shi Yao's confused gaze, Leng Wan chuckled softly and said, It's nothing much. I'm just expressing my feelings. Let's hurry up and leave. The dormitory is going to be locked soon. After saying those words, Leng Wan hastened her footsteps. Stepping into the dormitory, Leng Wan glanced at Shi Yao before heading up the stairs. When you no longer have any hope, you will hope that the people around you can obtain that happiness. Take Xiuyao for example. She might not be able to experience a beautiful love in this lifetime, but now that Xiuyao had a chance, she wanted to help her seize it. It was as if she was fulfilling her own happiness. With such thoughts in mind, just as they were about to reach the dormitory room, Ling Wan spoke up, "Yao Yao, why aren't you asking me where I got this little bit of milk tea from? You should know that Yi Cafe closes at 9 p.m. When I went to look for you, it was already 11 p.m. I don't have the ability to make Yi Cafe open so late at night just to make you a cup of milk tea." If Ling Wan hadn't said anything, Xiuyao wouldn't have realized it. However, as soon as Ling Wan said those words, she abruptly halted her footsteps. As if realizing something, she turned around to look at Ling Wan. Ling Wan also stopped in her tracks and asked with a smile, "Do you already have a rough idea of what to do?" Hearing Ling Wan's words, Xiuyao was even more certain of her suspicions. She opened her mouth for a moment, and only after a moment did she manage to utter two words, "It's him, yes, it's him. He called our dorm, and I happened to be the one who answered. He told me to go to the field to see you, and he was also the one who brought the milk tea. He said that when you're in a bad mood, you'll want to drink milk tea." After saying everything that needed to be said, Ling Wan reached out to pat Xiuyao's face and said, "All right, I'm going to take a bath now. There won't be any hot water left in the dormitory room." Ling Wan knew that this was all she had to say. Paying no heed to the dazed Xiuyao in the corridor, she strode forward and entered the dormitory room. It took Xiuyao quite some time before she finally returned to her room. Ling Wan had already finished her shower, and she was leaning against the headboard, reading a book. Xiuyao absent-mindedly grabbed her pajamas and towel and entered the bathroom as well. After she came out of the shower, she finally felt a little more awake. But as soon as she finished applying the cream on her face, Ling Wan passed a cup of warm milk to her. "Here, I was entrusted with a task, so I have to fulfill it. He told me to pass you a cup of warm milk, saying that it will help you sleep better." After Ling Wan was done with what she needed to say, she leaned back against the headboard and continued reading her book. On the other hand, Xiuyao hugged her steaming cup of milk. Just like in the corridor earlier, Ling Wan's actions had thrown her mind into disarray once more. Ling Wan continued reading until 1 in the morning before she switched off the bedside lamp. Lying on the bed, she didn't feel sleepy at all. It was hard to tell whether it was because she was trying to console Xiuyao, but the memories of that night made her unable to fall asleep. So, she picked up her phone and casually scrolled through it. On the night when Lin Jiej brought the lie detector over and fooled Qin Yiran, she and Xiuyao went out to eat skewers, where they bumped into Lu Benlai. When Lu Benlai sent her, Tian, and Jiang Yu back to their dormitory, he asked for her phone number once more, and she gave it to him. Chapter 674. She hadn't really looked at Lu Benlai's messages, but today, she had some matters to discuss with him, so she tapped on it. It was only then that she realized that she had received a lot of messages from him over the past half a month. "I hope that when you're thin, you can walk into my heart. That way, when you're fat, you won't be able to come out. Nuanyuan, it's not my intention to be glib. My goal is to make you happy. You said that I'm not good at math, that's right, I can't prove that you love me when I love you. You said that I'm not good at English, that's right, I don't know any other words besides the word love. You said that I'm not good at history, that's right, the only history in my mind is the day we met. You said that I'm not good at geography, that's right, I can only find you in my world. Nuan, I've been tanned recently, do you know why? Because I have to protect you in secret." All of the messages were similar to these lovey-dovey words, and some of them were even memes that Ling Wan had seen on the internet before. But when she finally read through them, she couldn't help but burst into laughter. However, she didn't dwell too long on Lu Benlai's message. She quickly typed out a message and sent it over, are you asleep? Lu Benlai immediately replied, no, I missed you so much that I couldn't sleep. Ling Wan was rendered speechless for a moment before getting straight to the point. Do you have Lin Jiej's phone number? Can you send it to me? Lu Benlai, I'm heartbroken, and I'm dead. I can't make a fortune anymore. Ling Wan ignored Lu Benlai. 3 seconds later, Lu Benlai asked, why do you need my boss's phone number? Don't tell me you like my boss. Nuan, I'm telling you, boss already has a girl he likes. She's his junior, so it's useless even if you like her. Ling Wan, please speak cautiously. Ling Wan, just say it, are you going to give it to me or not? If you don't, I'll find someone else. Lu Benlai, woo, I'll give it to you. Lu Benlai sent a string of numbers over. Ling Wan, thank you. Lu Benlai, why do you need boss's phone number? Let me tell you, Big Boss has a fiancé. He's a married man. Nuan, we can't do something immoral like breaking up someone else's marriage. Nuan, let me tell you, Big Boss has a lot of bad habits. Ignoring Lu Benlai's messages, Ling Nuan lifted her blanket and got off her bed. She sneaked out of the dormitory room and walked to the end of the building where there was no one around. Then, she scrolled through Lin Jiej's phone number and gave him a call. The phone rang for only half a second before it was hung up. What does this mean? You're not picking up. Ling Wan changed to a text message, I'm Ling Wan. The next moment, his phone lit up. It was a call from Lin Jiej. Ling Wan. Were all the guys in her dorm so weird? Recalling how Lin Jiej had hung up on her earlier, Ling Wan didn't hesitate to hang up on him. After which, she calmly waited for a moment, and when Lin Jiej called her once more, she leisurely tapped on the answer button. Ling Wan was in no hurry to speak. In any case, she was well aware that the one who was anxious was the person opposite her. Just as she thought, Lin Jiej took the initiative to speak up, I'm sorry. I didn't know that it was you, so I thought it was a prank call. After Lin Jiej's apology, Ling Wan continued, I've already brought Yao Yao back to the dormitory room, but I didn't call just to tell you this. Chapter 675. After the apology, Ling Wan said, I've already brought Yao Yao back to the dormitory, but this isn't the only reason why I called you. At this point, Ling Wan suddenly sensed that something was amiss on Lin Jiej's end. She paused for a moment before confirming that something was amiss on Lin Jiej's end. It was the howling of the wind. It's already so late. Why would there still be wind on his end? Ling Wan recalled that he had invited her to the entrance of the school earlier, and his car was parked by the roadside back then. Could it be? With this thought in mind, Ling Wan asked. Senior Lin, it can't be that you're still at the entrance of the school. Lin Jiej replied. A moment later, he said, I'm a little worried. Even though his words were very subtle, Ling Wan knew that he was referring to Shi Yao when he said that he was worried about her. He was able to stay at the entrance of the school for so long just because Shi Yao had cried. If she were to tell him what happened next, not only would he be worried, he would also feel heartache, but since she had already decided to be a good person on this matter, she should at least see it through to the very end. In any case, even if Lin Jiej didn't grieve over the matter today, he would still grieve over the matter when he found out the truth. Hoping that Lin Jiej would feel heartache sooner rather than later, Ling Wan said, Oh, you can rest assured now. Yao Yao has already fallen asleep. Even though Lin Jiej had only replied with a single word, Ling Wan could sense that he had heaved a sigh of relief through the phone. Ling Wan intentionally waited for a moment, and when Lin Jiej was halfway done heaving a sigh of relief, she took a deep breath and asked, Right, do you know anything about Yao Yao's family? Yao Yao's family. Lin Jiej's tone immediately tensed up. What happened to her family? You don't know. Back then, when you met her to confirm your marriage, your grandfather gave her family 1 million RMB. Do you know about it? Isn't that a betrothal gift? It is indeed a betrothal gift, but do you know under what circumstances Yao Yao's parents accepted the money? There was no reply from Lin Jie's side. The phone was silent for about 10 seconds before Leng Yuan spoke up. Yao Yao's parents were arguing for a divorce back then, and her father was preparing to abandon her mother and her. If not for your grandfather suddenly looking for Yao Yao's family and telling her that you are engaged, Yao Yao would have lost her father by then. There was still no response from Lin Jie. Leng Yuan knew that he was listening. Yao Yao found out about these things on the day she came back from Chengdu. At that time, Yao Yao's father owed a sum of money and needed the money, so he went back to find her mother to continue living. After your grandfather gave the money to Yao Yao's parents, they split the money in half as if it was stolen goods. On Lin Jie's end, there was still complete silence. It was so quiet that for a moment, Leng Yuan thought that she was muttering to herself. Chapter 676. Yao Yao also said that your family treats her very well, and she feels that her parents have let you down. She even feels that she isn't good enough. You might not be able to understand her, but as a woman, I can empathize with Yao Yao. If it were me, I would also choose to return the money because I want equality. I want our relationship to be clean, without any impurities. Money is a good thing, but sometimes, money isn't necessarily a good thing. After saying her piece, Leng Yuan waited for a moment, but Lin Jie still didn't respond. So, she spoke up once more, breaking the silence. It's getting late, so I'll be heading back to rest. If there's nothing else, I'll be hanging up now. After saying those words, Leng Yuan waited for a moment, and seeing that Lin Jie still wasn't replying, she prepared to lower the phone from her ear and end the call. But before she could even lower the phone by half an inch, Lin Jie's voice sounded from the other end. Thank you. Thank you. Even though Lin Jie didn't say anything, Leng Yuan could guess that he was thanking her for telling him all of this. Leng Yuan lowered her eyelids slightly, and after a moment of silence, she replied, You don't have to thank me. I'm not telling you all of this to help you. After all, I don't know you that well, so there's no reason for me to help you. I'm not usually like this, and the words that my friends tell me usually end here. The only reason why I'm telling you all of this is because I want to help Yao Yao. On the other end of the call, perhaps taken aback by Leng Yuan's heartless words, Lin Jie was stunned for a moment before replying, Thank you. This time, Leng Yuan didn't respond. Instead, she lowered the phone from her ear and hung up. While she was on the phone with Lin Jie, there were 2 missed calls and more than 10 unread messages on her phone. They were all from Lu Benlai. Nuan, your phone is busy. Are you talking to our boss? Nuan, our boss is a man of few words. What's there to talk about with him? Talk to me, I'm the best at it. Nuan, it's already been 10 minutes. Why are the 2 of you still chatting? A man and a woman alone in the middle of the night can easily get pregnant. Pregnant? Leng Yuan's lips twitched as she kept her phone. Ignoring Lu Benlai, who had been muttering to himself all this while, she returned to her dormitory room and went straight to bed. A long time after the call ended, Lin Jie finally lowered his phone from his ear. Leng Yuan's words echoed in his ears over and over again. For some reason, he felt as if he was in a dream, and he found it hard to accept. Whenever he imagined the sight of her squatting on the field and crying, he dared not imagine how she would react when she returned home from Chengdu and heard the news regarding her parents. She must have been very upset at that time, right? It must be even more pitiful and helpless than what he saw tonight, right? But he actually didn't differentiate between right and wrong, didn't ask for the truth, and just went along with what he knew. That day at the clubhouse, he even said, You've been the Lin family's fiancé for 6 years, it's only right that you get paid. Lin Jiej closed his eyes, and all of a sudden, he felt like giving himself a tight slap. Chapter 677. She must have been very unhappy recently, but when she was at her lowest, instead of consoling her, he dealt her a blow. He said that he liked her, but when he saw the account book in her hand and learned that she was working to repay him, he didn't even calmly sit down and ask her what she was thinking. Instead, he assumed that she was trying to distance herself from him, so he lost his temper at her. Back then, he still thought that she was trying to distance herself from him despite how good he had been to her. He felt that it wasn't worth it for him to like her, as if he had been wronged by the heavens. But now that he thought about it, what was there to feel wronged about? The one who was truly wronged was her. Lin Jiej gritted his teeth as he thought, I'm really a bastard through and through. How dare he say that he likes her? He's really insulting the word like. Lin Jiej felt as if something was squeezing his heart tightly, causing his teeth to clatter uncontrollably in pain. He knew that he was feeling remorseful and frustrated. Indeed, how could he not feel remorseful and frustrated? Back then, when she first barged into his world, he was unwilling to accept this fiancé who had suddenly appeared out of nowhere, so he said all sorts of harsh words to hurt her. It wasn't easy for him to get her to trust him and get close to him, but out of a moment of indignation, he said those harsh words to her once more, but this time around, even though he was furious, he still managed to restrain himself, preventing himself from saying those harsh words and falling into an abyss of despair once more. This was the first time he had hurt her in a moment of impulse, and it would also be the last time. Lin Jiej swore to himself. 3 hours later, after Yao had hung up on Mama Shi, she tried calling her daughter a few more times, but her phone was still switched off. After some thought, she decided to call the Lin family's old residence instead. By then, Grandpa Lin had already finished his bath and was just about to sleep when Auntie Sun knocked on his door, telling him that it was a call from the Shi clan. Grandpa Lin had Auntie Sun transfer the call to his bedroom, and roughly 10 minutes later, a furious roar sounded from Grandpa Lin's bedroom. Auntie Sun. Auntie Sun. Confused, Auntie Sun hurriedly ran over and asked, Grandpa, what's wrong? Why are you suddenly so angry? What's wrong? What else could he do? Isn't it that bastard? Apart from him, who else can make me angry? Do you know why Yao Yao's mother called me and asked me? Ask me, did that bastard and Yao Yao quarrel? Yao Yao suddenly tonight asked her, can we not get married? Yao Yao's mother also told me, it is Yao Yao who is not sensible, provoked that bastard, she asked that bastard not to be angry. Do you know? My old face is hurting from listening to this. I thought it was that bastard who didn't want Yao Yao, but it was actually Yao Yao who didn't want him, he. Old Master Lin scolded angrily as he paced around the room. Just as Auntie Sun was about to faint, Grandpa Lin suddenly stopped and glanced at the open door behind Auntie Sunday. Seeing this, Auntie Sun hurriedly closed the door. Only then did Grandpa Lin move closer to Auntie Sunday. Like a thief, he lowered his voice and asked, how is the matter I asked you to do? Chapter 678. For a moment, Auntie Sun couldn't understand what old Mr. Lin was getting at. What is it? Old Mr. Lin's face immediately darkened. What do you think? Still confused, Auntie Sun looked at old Mr. Lin in bewilderment. Seeing that Auntie Sun was still in a daze, old Mr. Lin kindly reminded her, it's raw rice. At this point, old Mr. Lin raised his eyebrows at Auntie Sun with a mischievous smile. Auntie Sun, raw rice? What do you mean by raw rice? Elder Lin angrily shot her a, you're really stupid look before roaring, what's done can't be undone. Auntie Sun came to a realization. Oh, I get it now. Old Mr. Lin, you mean to drug Miss Shi? Old Mr. Lin glared at Auntie Sun and bellowed, lower your voice. Are you going to let the entire world know that I've done such a shameful thing? That rascal is shameless, but I'm shameless. Old Mr. Lin's voice is much louder than mine. It's so loud that it can tear the roof off this room. Auntie Sun didn't dare to speak up, so she could only suppress her voice. Are you asking about the matter of me drugging Miss Sure and sending her to the young master's bed? I've already done it since you instructed me to do so at the start of the month. I received the medicine last week, and it's in the bedside cabinet in my room right now. As for Miss Sure's menstruation, I've already found out about it. It's at the end of every month. At the end of every month. In other words, Yao Yao is currently in a state where she can easily get pregnant. Old Mr. Lin stroked his chin and chuckled. Auntie Sun, old mister, do you mean that you intend to make a move right now? Do you know how to speak properly? What do you mean by making a move? What do you mean by that phrase on the internet? Help. It's an assist, yes. I'm an assist. Forget it, you won't understand even if I explain it to you. It's the same words every single time, but you still insist on telling me regardless of whether I'm willing to listen to it or not. Auntie Sun swallowed her indignation and said, Old mister, I admit that you have a good plan, but what do you intend to do in order to send Miss Sure to young master's bed? Well. Old Mr. Lin walked around the room with his walking stick. Then, he came up with an idea. That's easy. Isn't it little Roy's birthday in 2 days? It's her birthday. Can't you just call them over? Little Roy was Grandpa Lin's wife, and she had passed away many years ago. Auntie Sun, Grandpa Lin, it's been many years since the old lady passed away. How are you going to celebrate her birthday? So what if he passed away? I can't celebrate my birthday just because I passed away. Who made the rule that birthdays can only be celebrated by those who are still alive and not those who have left? Auntie Sun was rendered speechless. Old Mr. Lin felt that his arrangement was very good. It's settled then. You'll be in charge of little Roy's birthday banquet. Remember to inform them tomorrow and have them all come, Auntie Sun, yes. Old Mr. Lin waved his hands, indicating for Auntie Sun to leave. By the time Auntie Sun reached the door, old Mr. Lin suddenly burst into laughter. Chapter 679. After ending the call with Lang Wan, Lin Jiej stood at the entrance of the school until 3 in the morning before he finally returned home. After taking a shower, he didn't sleep for the entire night. It was only when the sun had already risen that he finally closed his eyes and forced himself to sleep. He didn't sleep well, and from time to time, Sure Yao's figure would appear in his dreams. The scene of her being put in a difficult position while working in the clubhouse, the scene of her squatting on the field and crying her heart out, and the disbelieving look on her face when she overheard his parents' conversation, this dream kept circling around him and wouldn't go away. In the end, he felt like he was suffocating. Then he opened his eyes and stared at the ceiling in a daze for a while. Then he propped himself up and sat up. He picked up the phone by the bed and glanced at it. It was already 3 in the afternoon. He casually ordered something to eat online, then lifted the covers and got out of bed to wash up. By the time he filled his stomach, it was already 5 in the evening. The weather today was exceptionally good. As the sun set in the west, the scenery outside the French windows of the study was exceptionally beautiful. Lin Jiej stared at the setting sun for a very long time, and it wasn't until the sky began to darken that he finally returned to his desk. He pulled out a chair, sat down, and switched on his laptop. He browsed through the website for a while before copying a link and sending it to his phone. Sure Yao didn't need to make up for her lessons on Sunday, so she washed her week's worth of dirty clothes in the afternoon. At night, she went to eat jjiang noodles with Lang Wan, Jiang Yu, and He Tian Tian. After returning to her dormitory room, she finally had some free time, so she logged into the long-awaited game. Coincidentally, Juice happened to be online, and upon seeing her, he immediately added her into his party. As Shiryao had gone to the washroom to wash the apples, she didn't see him. By the time she returned, there were already a few new messages in the "sexy and frisky" group. Juice, squinting eyes face Yao loves ice cream, sis Yao, why don't you come play? Expert of the monkeys, me too. Expert of the monkeys, less than 111,111 boss, are you coming? Mr. Numbers didn't appear in the chat, but when Shiryao switched to the game and entered, "It's Juice's party," she realized that the three of them were already online. Just like before, Mr. Numbers was still as silent as ever as he went on a killing spree. Juice and Expert were still exchanging insults with one another, and Shiryao was still following the trio with a dumbfounded look on her face. From time to time, she would ask, "Who hit me? Where is there anyone? What should I do now?" Thinking about it, it had been quite some time since the four of them had gathered together to play together. Shiryao realized that she still missed this simple and carefree atmosphere. With Mr. Numbers around, Shiryao had a great time lying around. Time flew by in the game, and in the blink of an eye, it was already 11 at night. She had lessons on Monday morning, so she restrained herself and ended her gaming session for the day. However, just as she was about to go offline after saying goodbye to the three of them, 111111, who had been silent throughout the entire game, suddenly spoke up, "Oh right, there's something that I'm not sure if you're interested in." Chapter 680. Shiryao replied with an "oh" before her phone started vibrating. She hurriedly jumped out of the game and into WeChat. Mr. Numbers sent her a link in the group chat. She clicked on it out of curiosity, and only then did she realize that it was an online tournament for PlayerUnknown's Battleground organized by a certain livestream platform. The prize for the champion was 500,000 renminbi in cash and 4 phones. Shiryao knew of such online tournaments. It could be a promotional event organized by a live stream platform, or it could also be an event organized by some big streamer to boost their fame. But what did this have to do with her? With such a thought in mind, Shiryao replied in the group, "What's wrong? Juice, what boss means is to ask if you're interested in joining us to play in this online competition." Shiryao felt as if she had just seen the funniest joke in the world. Without any hesitation, she sent a string of question marks. "Yao loves ice cream even though your cold jokes aren't bad, I really didn't laugh at all. I only felt cold. Juice, expert of the monkeys, ha ha ha, you're looking down on me now, aren't you? Grandson. Juice, who the hell are you calling grandson? Grandson. Expert of the monkeys, of course I'm calling you grandson. Grandson, 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 grandson. Juice, my grandson is a repeater. Less than 111,111. Just as Expert and Juice started bickering for the umpteenth time, less than 111,111 popped up. Less than 111,111, squinting eyes face Yao loves ice cream, it's not a cold joke. Perhaps due to less than 111,111's words, Juice and Expert stopped bickering and returned to the main topic in the group chat. Expert of the monkeys, that's right, sis Yao. It's not a cold joke. Shiryao casually typed, if it's not a cold joke, then it's a joke. Expert of the monkeys, Juice, ha ha ha, grandson, what goes around comes around. You're walking on the same path as me now, aren't you? 111111 was probably afraid that the two of them would start bickering again. Without waiting for Master to reply, he popped up again. We're serious. We're serious about inviting you to join us. We're serious about inviting you to join us. Looking at those words, Shiryao couldn't help but recall the message Lin Jiej had sent her many days ago. I'm serious about liking you. Her originally relaxed mood from playing games tonight had inexplicably become somewhat gloomy. By the time she came back to her senses, there were already several new messages on her phone screen. Juice, that's right, Sis Yao. We're serious about inviting you to join us and compete with us. Expert of the monkeys, Sis Yao, we need 4 people in order to register for the tournament. So, we're already prepared, and you're the one who's waiting for us. Even though she had already confirmed that they were really trying to recruit her as a teammate, she still felt that it was a little ridiculous. She couldn't help but ask, are you sure you're here to look for a teammate and not an opponent? Juice, how can you say that about yourself? Sis Yao, you're very important, alright. Without you, we won't be able to form a team, and if we can't form a team, we won't be able to get that 500,000 yuan prize. Chapter 681. 125,000. Putting aside the fact that she was now a home tutor, even when she was working in the clubhouse back then, that was more than 2 years of her salary, Shu Yao was truly tempted by Expert's final words, that's a lot of money. However, Shu Yao was still aware of her own limitations. Putting aside a match, she didn't even dare to say that she knew how to play a game. Even though she really wanted that 125,000, she still gritted her teeth and replied, stop messing around, I really can't do it. I'll only drag you down. Don't be so foolish as to ask me to play a match with you guys. I think you're just asking for it. Shu Yao thought that the people who would reply to her would be Juice and Expert, just like before. But little did she expect that a new message would appear on her screen shortly after she sent it. It was from Mr. Numbers. Less than 111,111. Don't worry, there's probably no one who's capable of beating me up in the game yet. Tied, 666, Juice, 666666, Expert of the monkeys 999999. Juice, what the heck are you sending? Idiot. Expert of the monkeys, doesn't a 6 make a 9? You fool. It had to be said that Mr. Numbers' words were truly arrogant and haughty. Even Shu Yao had the urge to give him a round of success. However, before she could do anything, Juice had already added, Sis Yao, don't reject us anymore. Even if you despise the 3 of us, you can't be so foolish as to reject the 125,000. Expert of the monkeys, that's right, Sis Yao. You should know that our boss is ranked 2nd in the entire server. He can take on 4 people at once. Less than 111,111, that's right. I brought these 2 outsiders with me, so there's no reason for me not to bring my family along. Family. Family. Wait a minute. This family is referring to me. Before Shu Yao could recover from her shock, Mr. Numbers had already sent another message. Less than 111,111. What's the saying again? You can't possibly watch as our family's money flows to someone else's family, right? Why did Mr. Numbers' words sound more and more wrong? How in the world did they become a family? Shu Yao was just about to send a message to Mr. Numbers to stop when she saw another message from Mr. Numbers, right, hubby? Upon seeing the word husband, Shu Yao suddenly realized that Mr. Numbers was referring to the couple they had gotten together in the game. Back then, she had jokingly called him her wife, Shu Yao. Oh, Shu Yao, alright then. I'll join in the fun then. Juice, then let's discuss how we're going to spend the prize money. Expert of the monkeys, I want a new computer. Juice, I want to buy Gucci's latest clothes. Shu Yao. They had only just confirmed their participation in the competition and hadn't even registered their names yet. Yet, Expert and Juice were already indulging in wild fantasies. What a pair of clowns. Chapter 682. By the time Shu Yao recovered from her daze, she realized that a second ago, she'd called Juice and Expert hilarious, and a second later, she was already fantasizing about how to spend that 125,000 renminbi. Xiuyao reached out to touch her face, which was starting to sting from the slap, before raising her finger and typing on the screen, that, if we're participating in the tournament, do we need to prepare anything? Juice, there shouldn't be anything to prepare, Expert of the monkeys. No, there is. For example, we need to come up with a team name. We can't just call it coquettish and frisky, right? Juice, I think it's a good name. Without even thinking, Xiuyao immediately objected, I refuse. This name was too hard to put into words. It didn't suit her style at all. Although, she wasn't qualified to talk about style. Besides, if they really won first place and the commentator said, congratulations to the coquettish and frisky team for winning first place, just the thought of it made Xiuyao's back turn cold and her cheeks burn up. Expert of the monkeys, I'll reject it too then. Juice, I'll reject it too then. Expert of the monkeys, what should the team name be then? Juice, kneel down and call me daddy. Xiuyao, Expert of the monkeys, pretty youth's team. Xiuyao, unable to stand it any longer, Xiuyao tilted her head and pondered for a moment before typing, donuts. Expert of the monkeys, Juice, Xiuyao, white rabbit? QQ candy. Ice cream. Otherwise, it's much cuter. Expert of the monkeys, pretty youth's team is better. Juice, kneel down and call me daddy. Due to the name of the team, Xiuyao and Expert Juice had been arguing in the group for a long time, but they weren't able to come to a conclusion. In the end, Expert came up with the idea of sending out dice emojis, and whoever won would be the winner. In the end, before the three of them could even tap on their dice emojis, Mr. Numbers, who had been silent all this while, suddenly appeared, 21, Juice, ? Expert of the monkeys. Yao loves ice cream. 111,111, team name. Tide ran out to be the interpreter. Boss means that the name of the team is 21. Juice, what kind of stupid name is that? Expert of the monkeys, 21. What 521? What dog? 111111? It's Juice, immediately deleted his message and sent a new one, 21, what a great name. It's obvious that it's the name of the champion. Expert of the monkeys, immediately retracted his message and sent a new one, I like this name. It feels like old friends at first sight. This is the name of my dream team. Expert and Juice were practically bootlickers. A second later, Xiuyao sent a message in the group, sure, I like this name, asterisk, sigh, as expected, the power of money was infinite. For the sake of 125,000 yuan, she had actually fallen to such a state of shamelessness. Xiuyao sighed in sorrow as she asked in the group, since we're going to participate in the tournament, should we train hard? 111,111, there's no need for that. You just need to lie down. Chapter 683. Less than 111,111, there's no need for that. You just need to lie down properly. Juice as expected of our boss. Even his words sound like that of a boss. Expert of the monkeys Xiuyao, what our boss means is that you can play however you want, and he'll just lie down properly. In this world, our boss is probably the only one who dares to bring a girl into a tournament, right? So handsome, so domineering, so ostentatious. It's even more arrogant than the previous, don't worry, there's probably no one who can crush me in the game, what's wrong with Mr. Numbers today? His words are so inexplicably alluring. Xiuyao calmed her heart, which had been stirred up by Mr. Numbers' words, and after reading through the conversation between Juice and Expert, she sent a smiley emoji over before replying, all right. I'm already lying down properly. The originally lively group instantly quietened down. Why did the talkative Juice and experts suddenly stop talking? Shi Yao was perplexed for a moment. Thinking that there was something wrong with her phone, she switched from Wi-Fi to 4G, then switched back from 4G to Wi-Fi, but she still didn't receive any messages. So, she couldn't help but send another message in the group. Why aren't you talking? Juice, this, he only typed 2 words and didn't follow up. Shi Yao was even more confused. What's this? Less than 111,111, it's nothing. It's getting late. Don't you have lessons tomorrow? Sleep early. Shi Yao, okay. Shi Yao didn't think too much about it. She thought that Juice and Expert had gone to wash up since it was getting late, so she replied, I'll be sleeping then. Bye-bye. Less than 111,111, on good night. Shi Yao casually sent a goodnight emoji of a bunny before putting down her phone and heading to the bathroom. Male dormitory building, room 501. Xie Shangzhou crossed his legs and swayed his body from side to side. Imitating the way a girl would speak, he asked with a high-pitched voice, since we're going to participate in the tournament, should we train hard? Lu Benlai sat on a chair and raised his chin. There's no need for that. You just need to lie down properly. Xie Shangzhou made a shy expression and said, okay, I'm already lying down. As soon as Xie Shangzhou said those words, he and Lu Benlai burst into laughter. Lu Benlai, I can't take it anymore. This conversation is too dirty. Xie Shangzhou, it's not just filthy, it's practically fantasizing. After saying that, the two of them burst into laughter again without hesitation. But this time, their laughter didn't last for too long before Lin Jiej, who was seated on the chair beside them, coughed lightly. Lu Benlai and Xie Shangzhou's laughter abruptly stopped, as if someone had installed a switch on them. Roughly 3 seconds later, Lu Benlai said, about that. I'm going to take a bath, Xie Shangzhou, I want to poop. As the two of them spoke, they got up to leave, but before either of them could make a move, Lin Jiej had already stopped them. None of you are allowed to move. From now on, until, Lin Jiej raised his wrist to take a look at the time and said. 1 in the morning. The 2-hour training match. Lu Benlai, this can't be, right? Boss, didn't you say that we're going to lie down? Xie Shangzhou, that's right. I didn't ask you if you were going to participate in the training match. You clearly said that you didn't need to. Chapter 684. Lu Benlai and Xie Shangzhou were left speechless for 10 seconds before they finally opened their mouths. Lu Benlai, boss, you're forgetting your friends for love. Xie Shangzhou, what do you mean by forgetting my friends for love? It's more like forgetting my friends for love. Lu Benlai, from boss, I saw a red dust concubine smile, but no one knew that it was Lychee. To put it simply, it's a pet that doesn't log off. Xie Shangzhou, say, why aren't I a woman? If I were a woman, I might have received the same preferential treatment too. You're overthinking things. After logging into the game, Lin Jiej shot a glance at Lu Benlai and Xie Shangzhou. Even if you're women, you won't be able to enjoy such preferential treatment. In my eyes, there are only 2 types of people, Yao Yao and everyone else other than Yao Yao. Thus, the only one who can enjoy such preferential treatment is Yao Yao. Hearing Lin Jiej's words, Lu Benlai kicked Xie Shangzhou's leg without any hesitation. Who asked you to spout nonsense? Are you satisfied now? You must have been stuffed with dog food, right? Xie Shangzhou rubbed his buttocks that Lu Benlai had kicked earlier before glaring at Lu Benlai. Lin Jiej knew that Xie Shangzhou's retort would cause the two of them to bicker with one another for a while longer. Thus, before Xie Shangzhou could come out, he quickly spoke up, "All right, it's time for training. Otherwise, none of us will be sleeping tonight." By the time the training competition ended, it was already 2 in the morning. After washing up, the 3 of them returned to their respective beds. Xie Shangzhou couldn't help but ask curiously, "Boss, if little Junior needs money, why don't you just give it to her? Why do you have to waste your time participating in these competitions?" Lu Benlai yawned as he nodded in agreement with Xie Shangzhou's words. "That's right. Besides, the prize money for these competitions isn't much at all. It's not even a fraction of what you get for a single project." Xie Shangzhou, "That's right, boss. I can't be as outstanding as you. If I were as outstanding as you and could earn so much money by taking on projects, I definitely wouldn't waste my life on this kind of competition. If I had the time, I would definitely spend it on projects and making money like crazy." Lu Benlai let out another long yawn. "Perhaps this is the new style of love that our boss has created. Rich people sure are different. Even when it comes to love, they would go so crazy. Instead of trying to fish for the big fish, they insist on catching the small fish. No, they're just catching the small shrimps." Faced with Lu Benlai and Xia Shangzhou's mutterings, Lin Jiej remained silent. It was also because they had been playing the game for a long time that everyone was tired. He didn't say anything, and the other 2 also felt that there was no point in chatting, so they went to sleep after a while. Lying on the bed, Lin Jiej propped his head up with his hands as he replayed the words that the duo had said earlier in his mind. Yes, they were right. If he had the time, he could have done a 7-figure project, but what was the use of giving him a 7-digit number? His goal wasn't to earn money for himself. His goal was to help Soft Bun earn money. Be it him or the Lin clan, it wouldn't have been a problem for either of them to help her in the past. However, due to her parents, his and the Lin clan's help would only increase the burden on her shoulders. Thus, he decided to use an identity that had nothing to do with Lin Jiej and the Lin clan to help her. Chapter 685. In order to help Shuyao earn money as quickly as possible, Lin Jiej specially picked the matches that were scheduled to start soon. So, on the 4th day after he successfully convinced Shuyao to join his team, the first elimination round began. Lin Jiej was the one who decided on the name of the team, and it was called 21 Foot. According to the rules of the tournament, everyone had to change their team's name, so their names were changed to 21, 111111, 21, Expert, 21, Juice, and 21, Yao. There were a total of 75 teams participating in the tournament, and as each match was limited to 100 participants, the preliminary round was split into 3 groups, with 100 participants in each group, which meant that there were 25 teams. The top 4 teams in each group would advance to the finals, and the teams from 5th to 12th would be given the privilege of a revival match. The teams that advanced to the finals, as the name suggested, would directly fight in the finals, while the teams from 5th to 12th place would fight in the second elimination round. The rules of this elimination round would refer to the rules of the first elimination round. The top 4 teams would advance to the finals, while the teams that placed 5th or lower would be eliminated. The tournament was based on a point system. The team that won the championship would receive 100 points, the second place would receive 70 points, the third place would receive 50 points, the 4th to 10th place would receive 25 points, and the 11th to 25th place would receive 0 points. Each team would receive 5 points for each kill. There were 3 matches in the first elimination round, and the time of the match was 2 in the afternoon. As it was an online tournament, there wasn't a venue set up for the offline tournament. Thus, all the teams had to do was enter the room set up by the organizers. To be honest, Shuyao was a little nervous when the match officially started, especially since it was being broadcasted live on a certain streaming platform. In the first round of the tournament, Shi Yao was instantly killed by a team as soon as she landed on the ground. However, regardless of whether she was dead or alive, it didn't affect the team at all. In the end, Mr. Numbers took down 12 players. Juice and Expert won the match with 3 and 5 kills respectively. In the second round, Shi Yao managed to make it to the first safe zone, but not long after, she was killed by a sniper rifle. Once again, their team won the chicken dinner. In the third round, Shi Yao finally made it to the finals, but before she could do anything, she was blown up by a bomb, and in the end, she won the chicken dinner. By the time the 3 matches were over and Team 21 had secured the first place with the highest total points, Shi Yao realized that it didn't matter whether she was nervous or not. That was because she died 80% of the time in the 3 matches. Since they had advanced to the finals, Shi Yao and the others didn't have to participate in the second elimination round. On the night before the finals, due to his grandfather's sudden urge to prepare a birthday banquet for his long-deceased grandmother, Lin Jiej decided to return to the Lin family manor to attend a family meeting. Even though the first elimination round was an easy win, Lin Jiej didn't let his guard down. He called Liu Benlai and Xie Shangzhou over to play a game. At around 11, he went down to get some water due to his thirst. Old Master Lin's bedroom was just beside the stairs. When he went downstairs, he saw that the bedroom door wasn't closed tightly, and the light inside was on. It's already so late, yet Grandpa is still awake. Chapter 686. Frowning, Lin Jiej walked up to the door, intending to take a look inside. At that moment, his grandfather's voice sounded from the bedroom. Are the attendants in charge of Xiao Rui's birthday banquet done? Xiao Rui. Lin Jiej knew of this name. That was the name his grandfather loved to call his grandmother. But waiters and waitresses. What does that mean? Lin Jiej was just about to knock on the door. Following which, Auntie Sun's voice sounded from the bedroom. Old mister, don't worry. I've met all of the attendants arranged by the hotel manager this afternoon, and they've already made arrangements for them. The attendant has already promised me that she'll handle the matter properly on that day, and she's even paid her hush money to ensure that she won't leak anything out. That's good to hear. Grandpa Lin nodded. Then, seemingly still worried, he asked. What about the medicine? Auntie Sun, I've already told the attendant that I'll secretly pass the medicine to her while she's pouring hot water for you. Medicine. Catching those words, Lin Jiej seemed to have understood something, and a slight frown appeared on his forehead. Grandpa Lin seemed to be very satisfied with Auntie Sun's words, and he replied with an before chuckling softly, I have a feeling that Yao Yao will bear a child on the night of Xiao Rui's birthday. Child. Medicine. It's really as I thought. Grandpa is going to do something this time. Barely after this thought flashed across Lin Jiej's mind, Grandpa Lin seemed to be worried about something, so he began instructing once more, remember to have the attendant remove the condoms from the hotel room that day. Also, don't do anything to Yao Yao's drinks, and don't forget about that brat either. In any case, you must succeed this time, Auntie Sun. Yes, old mister. After a moment of silence, Auntie Sun continued, Old mister, it's getting late now. You should rest early. Fearing that Auntie Sun would see him when she came out, Lin Jiej subconsciously took a few steps back, intending to head back upstairs. But before he could get too far, Grandpa Lin's uneasy voice sounded from the room once more. Do you think that I'm being a little too selfish by doing this, Auntie Sun? Old mister, why would you suddenly say that? Aren't you doing this for young master? Grandpa Lin, yes, I'm doing this for him. I can tell that he likes Yao Yao, and I do the same, but Yao Yao doesn't want that. Just because he likes me, we're to force Yao Yao to stay in the Lin Jiej. Sometimes, I can't help to feel that I'm being a little too selfish. Auntie Sun seemed to want to console Grandpa Lin, but she only managed to call out his name before Grandpa Lin interrupted her. Forget it, let's not dwell on this anymore. It's useless to dwell on it. Besides, I've never done anything outrageous in my life, so I'll be fine. Besides, I only have this one grandson of mine, and he's only in love with this one girl. Right now, he can't even chase after a wife. As someone who's about to die, I have no choice but to help him. Otherwise, I can't possibly let him do something immoral, can I? This. Chen, Dong, I to shao. I. Chapter 687. Auntie son, old mister, you're just trying to help young master live a good life. While it's possible that Miss Sure isn't willing to marry young master right now, just think about it. Be it you, Mr. Lin, Madam, First Miss, or young master, everyone in the Lin clan has been treating Miss Sure well. Besides, a person's heart is made of flesh. Miss Sure might feel a little upset after this matter, but old mister, as long as you treat her well, she'll slowly recover. After all, time will fade everything away. Yes, you're right. I've let Yao Yao down on this matter, so I'll make it up to her in the future. Grandpa Lin seemed to have calmed down by Auntie Sun's words, and his tone returned to normal. Didn't you mention to Yao Yao's parents that we'll buy them a house in the city center? How's the appraisal going? Get them to bring over some pictures of suitable houses so that Yao Yao's parents can choose on Sharoi's birthday. Let's see which one they like. Auntie Sun, yes, old mister. Don't worry, I'll give the real estate agent a call tomorrow morning. Seeing that the conversation between Auntie Sun and his grandfather had nothing to do with him and Shi Yao, Lin Jiej acted as if he had never been there at all. He silently backed away from his grandfather's room, and without heading to the kitchen to drink some water, he returned straight to his bedroom upstairs. Closing the door behind him, he stood at the doorway for a moment before walking over to his bed and picking up his phone. He took a look at the calendar and saw that there were only 5 days left until his grandmother's birthday. In other words, as long as he acted as if he hadn't heard anything at all in 5 days, she would. It must be said that this was an extremely tempting matter for him. It was something that he wouldn't even dare to dream of, but his grandfather had actually helped him accomplish it. It was just as his grandfather had said. Even though his methods were a little immoral, as long as he followed his grandfather's arrangements, as long as she really got pregnant, she would truly belong to him. Even if he owed her in this matter, he could learn from his grandfather and treat her well, using his entire life to make up for it. Lin Jiej could clearly see the temptations in his heart. Some time later, Lin Jiej was jolted back to reality by the ringing of his phone. It was a call from Lu Benlai. Picking up the call, his voice sounded from the other side. Boss, didn't you go for a drink of water? Why isn't the game online after so long? It was only then that Lin Jiej realized that he had forgotten about the training match against Xie Shangzhou and Lu Benlai. He responded calmly, hung up the phone, and logged into the game. He had truly been affected by the words of his grandfather and Auntie Sun, and he wasn't in a good condition for the rest of the training match. His mind seemed to be elsewhere as well. There were a few times when Lu Benlai and Xie Shangzhou tried to speak to him, but he only heard the first few words before his mind drifted off. Maintaining this state for 2 rounds, Lin Jiej called for a halt. Lu Benlai and Xie Shangzhou seemed to have noticed something amiss with him as well, so they asked him what was wrong. However, he didn't say a word. Instead, he put down his phone and headed to the bathroom. After his bath, Lin Jiej switched off the lights and lay down on his bed, but he was still unable to fall asleep. The night was very quiet, but he seemed to have encountered a huge problem, turning over on the bed from time to time. Chapter 688. The next afternoon, it was time for the finals. The rules were no different from the first elimination round, but instead of 3 matches, there were 5. Of the 75 teams, 24 made it to the finals, and those who could make it to the finals were no weaklings. All along, Xiao had thought that it was already the limit for her to die 80% of the time in the elimination rounds. Who could have thought that she'd break a new record in the finals? Basically, she'd die 99% of the time. In 4 out of the 5 matches, she delivered the first kill in the match with a landing maneuver. Compared to winning the elimination round with ease, Mr. Numbers, Juice, and Experts still faced some difficulty in the finals due to the fact that they had to fight 3 against 4 for the entire 5 rounds. However, Mr. Numbers was truly able to hold his own. Even when he was the only survivor in the final round, he single-handedly wiped out 2 full squads and won the chicken dinner. Not only that, he even managed to overtake the first place in the final round, thus winning the championship. As a member of Team 21, even though Xiao had been spectating the entire match, she was still moved by the final match. After the match, Xiao couldn't wait to head over to the Sexy and Frisky chat group. Yao loves ice cream, less than 111,111, God, you were so cool in that match. Perhaps it was because everyone was a little tired after the match, but no one bothered to respond to her. Even though Xiao hadn't exerted much effort, the sky had already turned dark after 5 matches. She hadn't had dinner yet, so she rubbed her growling stomach and headed to the canteen. After returning to her dormitory room, Xiao picked up her phone and took a look at her WeChat. In the Sexy and Frisky chat group, other than Juice and Expert flattering Mr. Numbers, there was no other news. Xiao didn't respond to the chat group because she saw a private message from Mr. Numbers. Less than 111,111, you used my ID to register, and I've already given you your prize money. However, it'll take a few days for your phone to arrive, so I'll send it to you first. Perhaps due to Xiao's lack of response, roughly 10 minutes ago, he sent another message, can I use a WeChat transfer? Is he asking for a share of the money? But I didn't exert any strength at all. Out of embarrassment, Xiao's face reddened as she typed, why don't we just forget about it? Not only was I of no use, I even dragged you guys down, causing you guys to have to fight 3 against 4 in the finals. It was really tough. A second after she successfully sent the message, a string of transaction records appeared on the screen. 111,111, transferred 50,000 yuan to him. 111,111, transferred 50,000 yuan to him. 111,111, transferred 20,000 yuan to him. 111,111, transferred 5,000 yuan. Just as they had agreed, the total was 125,000 renminbi. 111,111, without you, Team 21 wouldn't have been established successfully, and 3 people wouldn't have been able to play in the competition. So, this money should be divided as it should be. Chapter 689. Gleefully, she first withdrew 100,000 renminbi into her bank account before staring at the remaining 25,000 renminbi. After a moment of contemplation, she headed to WeChat and sent Juice, Expert, and Mr. Numbers a red packet of 666 renminbi each, along with a message, congratulations on winning the championship. 3 seconds later, she received a reply from the 3 of them. After taking her money, Juice returned a sum of 888 renminbi to her and said, Sis Yao, congratulations on becoming the champion. Expert of the Monkeys took her money and sent her a sum of 999 renminbi. Champion Yao, congratulations on winning the championship. 111,111 took her money and sent her a sum of 6,666 renminbi. Congratulations. She was the one who congratulated her first, and they had already accepted her money. Now that they were the ones congratulating her, she couldn't possibly refuse to accept their money, but this way, not only did she not lose any money, she even made a profit of 6,500 renminbi. Shi Yao stared at her balance after withdrawing money and saw that it had increased to 31,661. 12 renminbi, and she felt a little guilty. After chatting with Juice and Expert for a while longer, she ran over to less than 111,111 and solemnly thanked the hero of the tournament. I really have to thank you for your help in the tournament. Speaking of which, this feels exactly the same as when I hugged the thigh of a super god in a client-side game, fought a boss with him, and got my share of super equipment. 111111, I'll bring you to continue distributing equipment in a few days. Shi Yao was taken aback for a moment, and she replied, huh. Less than 111,111 forwarded her 2 links, and they were still online tournaments. One of them was worth 300,000 renminbi, and the other was worth 800,000 renminbi. Seeing this, Shi Yao realized that Mr. Numbers meant that he would bring her to the tournament in a few days. But surely it wasn't appropriate for her to just lie around and share the money. Shi Yao, I think, why don't you guys make an announcement on the school forum to recruit a PUBG expert? Why don't I do it for you? Less than 111,111, no. Less than 111,111, I'm not the kind of person who would burn the bridge after crossing it. Was he saying that Team 21 was formed because of her, and he couldn't kick her away after crossing the river? But to say that she was a hero. Shi Yao couldn't help but feel a little awkward. Rather than a hero, it's more appropriate to call me a traitor. 111111, yes, even if they are rebels and traitors, we still have to keep them. Was he referring to her as a traitor and traitor? Shi Yao pouted as she pondered for a moment. She felt that it wasn't right for her to continue lying down like this, so she replied, why don't I acknowledge you as my teacher, and you'll teach me how to play games? I'll learn seriously. Even if I'm not that good, I won't always be a burden. For a long time, the screen showed that the other party was typing. Then, a message from 111,111 appeared on the screen, yes. Shi Yao replied happily, Master, please accept a bow from your disciple. 111,111, you called him wrongly. Yao loves ice cream. 111,111, you should call her aunt. Upon seeing those words, Shi Yao, who was drinking her yogurt, nearly choked on her drink. Auntie, auntie. He thinks that I'm Xiaolongnu. And since I'm calling him aunt, doesn't that mean that I'm Yonghua? After going around in circles, I'm still her husband and wife. Chapter 690. Less than 111,111, are you free tomorrow afternoon? Sure, I'll teach you how to play. Auntie. Pooey. Auntie, your head. I nearly got tricked by Mr. Numbers. It's my master, isn't it a little inappropriate for me to apply for leave on the first lesson when my master is calling me? But I really did have an appointment with someone in advance. Shi Yao hesitated for a moment before replying honestly, I might not be able to tomorrow. 111,111, ? Shi Yao, I've been working as a tutor recently, so I thought that I'd be free tomorrow. I have an appointment with a student in the afternoon, so, after sending this message, out of embarrassment, Shi Yao added on, however, I'm free for the afternoon and evening the day after tomorrow, and the afternoon and evening the day after that. Less than 111,111, got it. Mr. Numbers had always been this cold and aloof. If one wasn't paying attention, he could easily kill the conversation. Just as Shi Yao was thinking about how she should reply to his words, a new message popped up on her screen. Less than 111,111, the job you mentioned previously, is it a part-time job? Shi Yao was stunned for a moment before she recalled that she had mentioned it to him a few days ago when she was still working at the clubhouse. Shi Yao wasn't good at lying, so she replied, no, I was working at another job back then. I only changed my job after a while. Less than 111,111, replied with an O. He didn't ask her why she changed her job, but roughly a minute later, he asked her another question. Does your fiancé know that you're working to repay him? Fiancé. Lin Jiej. It seemed like they hadn't met ever since they parted on bad terms at the clubhouse. The only time they had contacted each other was when she received a call from her mother. She was crying on the field, and he called Leng Wan over to accompany her. However, he didn't appear before her either. Shi Yao was stunned for a moment before replying, got it. Less than 111,111, didn't he say that you don't have to repay him? Shi Yao didn't reply to Mr. Number's message, but the words that Lin Jiej had said before he left in a huff, you've been the fiancé of the Lin family for 6 years, so it's only right for you to receive some compensation. He did say that she didn't need to pay him back, but his words weren't very pleasant to hear. Perhaps it was because she hadn't replied to Mr. Number's message for quite some time, but Mr. Numbers sent her another message. Was I being rude? Shi Yao quickly replied, no, he said that I don't need to return it, but I still want to return the money. 111,111, why? Aren't you two engaged? Why do you have to be so clear about it? Fiancé. Shi Yao stared at the word fiancé for a moment before she started typing on her phone. If it's possible, I really don't wish for such a relationship to appear. If she had known that her fiancé with Lin Jiej had been born out of her parents' mentality, she would have surely resisted with all her might. Perhaps Mr. Numbers was busy. It took a long time before he replied to her message. Are you thinking of canceling your engagement with him? Had it been in the past, Shi Yao felt that she would have replied with an affirmative without any hesitation. However, as she stared at Mr. Number's message, she found herself at a loss for words. Was she going to annul her engagement with Lin Jiej? Chapter 691. Dismiss. Don't dismiss. Don't dismiss. Dismiss. The two answers swayed in Shi Yao's mind for a very long time, but she was still unable to find a definitive answer. In the end, Shi Yao replied with 4 words, I don't know. I'm also troubled by this matter. Back when I first found out that I had a fiancé, I was only 13 years old. Back then, I didn't really know what a fiancé was. All I know is that one day, a car drove up to my house, and that car drove me and my parents to a very beautiful house. The old man in the house was very kind, and he gave me a lot of delicious food and candies that I've never seen before. Then, my mom told me that as long as I became the fiancé of the young master of this house, I would be able to eat these candies all the time. I was quite happy back then, but that night, I met the fiancé they were talking about. He was a very handsome man, even more beautiful than the boys in the cartoons I've watched. Back then, I was also very fond of him, and I really wanted to become good friends with him, but he was very fierce towards me. After that, I was frightened by him. I didn't think that he was beautiful at all, no different from the Demon King in the cartoons. I ran to my parents and told them that I didn't want to be his fiancé. My parents flew into a rage, especially my dad. He smashed a chair and told me that I couldn't reject him. I've never angered my parents before, but my dad said that if I didn't listen to him, he would abandon me. I don't remember the exact details, but I didn't fight back. My dad probably didn't fight back either, so our relationship continued like that. There are some things that I didn't really understand when I was young, but as I grew older, I gradually came to understand that I had a fiancé, so I couldn't be like other girls my age and make friends with other boys. That wasn't right, and I couldn't like other boys either. That wasn't right either, how should I put it? In any case, during my entire adolescence, I kept in mind that I had a fiancé who ignored me and might not even know me. That's why I couldn't be like other girls my age, who could hate and love wantonly. Even if I had someone I wanted to like, I only dared to say that I wanted to like him, not actually like him. Unbeknownst to Yao, she had unknowingly typed out the words that she had been suppressing in her heart for so many years. When she tapped on the send button, she was stunned for a moment before realizing that she had spoken too much. She hurriedly retracted the long string of words and changed it into a new one before sending it over to Mr. Numbers. It's getting late, so I'm going to take a shower and sleep now. Bye-bye. Mr. Numbers didn't respond to her message. Yao heaved a sigh of relief inwardly. Thinking that he probably wasn't looking at his phone, it meant that he hadn't seen her rambling earlier. Thus, she put down her phone and headed to the washroom. When she came out of the bathroom, she saw that there was an additional message in her WeChat. 111,111, good night. Yao replied with a good night emoji before falling asleep. At the same time, in the old residence of the Lin family. Chapter 692. The rustling autumn wind carried a hint of chill with it. As it blew against Lin Jie's body, it made him, who had been in the room for a long time, more awake than before. He stared at the picturesque scenery of the residential area for a while before the long message Yao had sent him flashed across his mind. She might have thought that he hadn't had the time to read it, but in truth, he had read through every single word of it. Even though he had swiftly scanned through it, his innate memory was still astonishing. While he dared not say that he could memorize every single word of it, he was still able to remember the main points of her words. So, her first impression of him was actually that good. A handsome man like him from a manga, and she was very fond of him. If he hadn't resisted back then, if he had accepted her existence back then, would that young girl have fallen in love with him then? So, just like him, she had tried to resist, but she didn't succeed either. When he was growing up, he had never treated her as his fiancée as anything. If he had met a girl he liked before he fell in love with her, he would have chased after that girl openly. He would have even dumped her as his fiancée in name without any hesitation. But she didn't. She actually didn't dare to stay with boys for too long because of her fiancé, and she didn't dare to like boys either. But she didn't. She actually didn't dare to stay with boys for too long because of her fiancé, and she didn't dare to like boys either. But she didn't. She actually didn't dare to stay with boys for too long because of him, a fiancé who was practically non-existent. The best years of a girl's youth were in high school and university, but she had wasted more than half of her time on him. Indeed. They had never been together. Even though they were engaged, there wasn't the slightest bit of happiness and sweetness between a man and a woman. Yet, she still gave all of her youth to him. From the age of 13 to 19, in these 6 years, she had never had the chance to live the life she wanted to. She had said that to love and hate without restraint. That was something that everyone possessed when they were young and frivolous, but she didn't have it. She had even said that even if I had someone I wanted to like, I would only dare to say that I wanted to like him, not that I liked him. To think that such a simple word could actually exert such an excruciating force behind one's back, Lin Jie knew that his heart was aching for the girl he loved. It wasn't until today that he realized how unfair the girl he liked had always been treated. Whether it was her family or his family, Lin Jie couldn't help but recall the words he had overheard at his grandfather's door last night. Time passed quickly, and before he knew it, it was the day of old Master Lin's wife's birthday celebration. The venue was still the Peking Hotel, but this time it wasn't lunch, but dinner. Yao headed to Beijing World Hotel from her school. As she had to tutor her students, she set off a little late. By the time she arrived, other than Lin Jie, everyone was already present. After greeting all the elders in the house, her mother called her name and asked her to accompany her to the bathroom. Yao knew that going to the washroom wasn't the main point. The main point was that her mother was trying to find an excuse to say something to her. She didn't refuse and followed her mother out of the private room. Chapter 693. As soon as she entered the washroom, Mother Shi immediately turned to Shi Yao and asked, "Yao Yao, how are you and Jiej now?" Shi Yao frowned, but she didn't say a word. Instead, she pulled open a door and entered a cubicle. After she was done, she opened the cubicle door and saw Mother Shi standing by the door. Before she could say anything, Mother Shi had already spoken up. "You haven't apologized to Jiej yet, right?" Ignoring her mother's words, Shi Yao walked out of the washroom. Mother Shi quickly followed after her. "Yao Yao, why are you so immature?" A moment after Lin Jiej stepped out of the elevator, he heard a familiar voice. Instinctively turning his gaze over, he saw Shi Yao, whom he hadn't seen for a long time. Her mother was by her side, and the voice that he found slightly familiar was coming from her. "Yao Yao, didn't your father tell you to coax Jiej the other day? Besides, Grandpa Lin has been taking such good care of our family, so it's only right for you to coax Jiej a little. You should know that most women don't have a fortune as good as yours. If you marry Jiej, you won't have to worry about food and clothing for the rest of your life. Don't be silly. Yao Yao, I've said so much already. Have you listened to me or not? Yao Yao. I'm doing this for your own good." Shi Yao and her mother didn't notice Lin Jiej standing behind them. As they walked away, Shi Yao's mother continued to speak. It was only when they were a distance away and Lin Jiej could no longer hear her mother's voice that he finally snapped out of his daze. With a nonchalant expression on his face, he walked toward the compartment. He entered roughly a minute later than them, and by the time the attendant pushed the door open for him, the atmosphere inside was extremely harmonious. Shi Yao was seated beside her mother, and there wasn't the slightest hint of displeasure or sadness on her face. Her mother's face was also devoid of the reproach from before, replaced with a kind smile. As soon as he walked in, Shi Yao's father was the first to speak up. "Jiej is here." Lin Jiej politely greeted Uncle Shi before turning to Shi Yao's mother and greeting Auntie Shi. After that, he greeted his grandfather before pulling out the only remaining chair beside Shi Yao and taking a seat. Now that everyone had arrived, Old Master Lin called for the waiter to serve the dishes. Lin Jiej picked up a disinfectant towel from the table and wiped his hands clean. From the corner of his eye, he noticed that Mama Shi was discreetly hitting Shi Yao's legs. Wiping his hands, Zhang Xian's movements slowed down for a moment before he took a closer look at Shi Yao and her mother. He vaguely heard Shi Yao's mother whispering to her with a suppressed voice, "Hurry up. Say hi to Jiej." Yao Yao. It seems that her mother saw her indifferent expression. The last tone of her voice is slightly hurried, but because there are so many people around and also afraid to be noticed, her mother still suppressed her temper. "Yao Yao, how can you suddenly become so immature?" Yao Yao. Lin Jiej could clearly see Shi Yao, who had been silent all this while, silently grabbing her clothes tightly. He stared at it for less than 3 seconds before retracting his gaze. Putting down the towel, he picked up the teapot that the attendant had just placed on the table and poured a cup of hot tea for Shi Yao. "Have some water." Chapter 694. Meeting Shi Yao's gaze, Lin Jiej didn't say a word. Shi Yao didn't say a word either. The atmosphere between the two of them was a little too quiet. Seeing that the two of them were silent, Mother Shi couldn't help but speak up. "Yao Yao, Jiej poured you a cup of water. Why aren't you thanking him at all?" As she said those words, Mother Shi turned to Lin Jiej and said with an apologetic smile, "Yao Yao is getting more and more immature as she grows up. Jiej, I'll thank you on her behalf." As those words left Mother Shi's mouth, Lin Jiej saw Shi Yao's fingertips subconsciously tremble for a moment. For some inexplicable reason, his heart clenched in pain. He politely and sensibly welcomed Mother Sher's gaze with a fawning smile. Just as he was about to reply with, "It's fine," Lin Jie, who was sitting beside him, spoke up first, "Auntie Sher, you're being too polite with your words. The ATM is pouring water for Yao Yao." Mother Sher didn't understand what Lin Jie was talking about, and she stared at her in a daze. Lin Jie was also stunned by Mother Sher's gaze, and the words at the tip of her tongue came to a halt. A few seconds later, she finally recovered and said, "Oh, the ATM is Lin Jie." Mother Sher widened her eyes in realization, and a smile blossomed on her face. Lin Jie continued, "It's only right for Lin Jie to pour water for Yao Yao. Putting aside water, it's only right for him to pour water for Yao Yao's feet as well." Pouring water for Yao Yao's feet. Is she really his biological sister? Lin Jie's lips twitched, and he swallowed back the words that were at the tip of his tongue. Hearing Lin Jie's words, Aunt Lin Gunan chimed in, "Jie is right. It's only right for Jie to take care of Yao Yao." Putting aside pouring water for Yao Yao's feet, even if Yao Yao asked Jie to drink it, he'd still have to drink it, drinking water for Yao Yao's feet. Lin Jie raised his hand and rubbed his nose. There's a high chance that he's not his biological son. Grandpa Lin, indeed. There's no need for Yao Yao to stand on ceremony with Jie. Even if there's a need to stand on ceremony, it should be Jie being the one being polite to Yao Yao. Also, what do you mean by having to drink water for Yao Yao's feet? That's just too disgusting, Lin Jie thought. Grandfather's words mean that I can still save him. After all, I'm his biological son. However, as soon as he had this thought, old Master Lin chuckled and said to Yao Yao, "However, Yao Yao, if you really want him to drink it, then let him drink it. If he doesn't drink it, tell Grandpa, and Grandpa will help you force him to drink it. Not only will he be forced to drink the foot wash water, but he will also be forced to drink the toilet water." Lin Jie, if there was a recall function, he would recall the thoughts that had just appeared in his mind. He was now 100% sure that he wasn't his biological son. Mother Sher, Uncle Lin, you guys are really spoiling Yao Yao too much, you'll spoil her rotten. Papa Sher replied, "That's right, Uncle Lin. Look at how spoiled she is." After exchanging some pleasantries, Sher Yao's parents turned to Lin Jie and spoke. "Mother Sher, Jie, Yao Yao can be a little immature at times. If she has offended you in any way, please don't take it to heart. Auntie will apologize to you on her behalf." Papa Sher, that's right, that's right. I'll apologize to you on her behalf as well. Her mother and I will also reprimand her so that she won't be so immature and go overboard. In any case, just don't take it to heart. Chapter 695. Perhaps it was due to the presence of so many elders that the young lady didn't want to lose her composure. She lowered her head, not showing any signs of wanting to speak. She seemed to be very quiet, but Lin Jie noticed that her lips had visibly pursed up slightly after her parents finished speaking. They had lived under the same roof for a month, so he knew that this small action of hers was a sign of her unhappiness. Lin Jie's Adam's apple bobbed up and down as he turned to Sher Yao's parents. But just like before he could say anything, someone from the Lin clan had already spoken up. "Father Lin Gubei, in-laws, you're giving Jie too much face by saying those words. You're his elders, and you're his parents now that he's together with Yao Yao. What do you mean by apologizing on Yao Yao's behalf? If he really gets into a fight with Yao Yao, there's no need to think too much about it. He's in the wrong." Lin Jie, that's right. My father is right. There's no need to take care of an ATM psyche. He only needs to take care of Yao Yao. Uncle Sher, Auntie Sher, there's no need for you to be so polite with him. You can be considered half his parents in the future, so feel free to scold and hit him as you please. Grandpa Lin, also, what do you mean by spoiled? Girls are born to be pampered. When we were young, Jai had a private car to send her to school, and Jiej had to walk to school whenever he was near or ride a bicycle whenever he was far away. It's only natural for boys to have a tough upbringing, or else they won't be able to shoulder their responsibilities. As for girls, they have to be more precious. Not to mention, Yao Yao is so sensible, so she's even more precious. The usually reticent Jiang Wangue spoke up, indeed. When Lin Jiej was 16, I cut off his living expenses. If he wants to live, he has to earn his own living. Lin Jiej was still intending to say something, but he felt that there was no need for him to say anything at this point. His heart was aching for Soft Bun, but at this moment, he realized that the one who should be aching for her was him. He was the pitiful one in this house. Since the Lin clan had already said so, there was nothing else Yao's parents could say, so they naturally changed the topic. However, it didn't take long before Grandpa Lin suddenly thought of something and asked, "By the way, Auntie Sun, where are the atlases I asked you to bring over?" Hearing Grandpa Lin's reminder, Auntie Sun immediately walked over to the sofa by the side and passed a folder to Grandpa Lin. Grandpa Lin didn't flip through the booklet. Instead, he gestured for Auntie Sun to bring the booklet over to Yao's parents. That day, didn't you say that Yao Yao wouldn't be living with you after her marriage? You said that you were afraid that she wouldn't be able to get used to it, so you bought a house in the city so that Yao Yao could visit you whenever she wanted. As a matter of fact, I've asked the agent to choose a few better houses for dinner today. See which one you like. Upon hearing those words, Yao abruptly raised her head and said, "Grandpa Lin, there's no need for that," but before Yao could finish her rejection, Lin Gunan had already interjected, "It's fine, it's fine. Besides, it doesn't cost too much to buy a house. Since you're married to Jiej, your parents will be Jiej's parents as well. He'll definitely buy a house for your parents." While Lin Gunan was speaking, Auntie Sun had already passed the booklet over to Yao's parents. Chapter 696. Lin Jai, it's not big at all. Those houses aren't even as big as the ATM's bedroom. Lin Gubei, indeed. Besides, it's more comfortable to live in a big house than a small one. Grandpa Lin, I'm the one who decided on the size of the houses, so just listen to me. Take a look and see which one you like. I've already looked through most of the houses, and I think that the first and eighth houses are the best. They face north and south, and the eighth house even has a small balcony. Following Grandpa Lin's words, Yao's parents flipped to the first and eighth houses respectively. Father, sure, the eighth house is actually that good? Mother, sure, Uncle Lin, your eye of discernment sure is sharp, and the location is good too. Yao, who had been able to tolerate her parents no matter what they said earlier, was clearly starting to panic at this moment. Dad, Mom, the house you're living in is really good. The air in the suburbs is fresh, and it's more convenient for you to go hiking or something. Lin Jiej noticed that halfway through Yao's words, her father had shot her a fierce glare, and her mother had discreetly pinched her thigh. Lin Gunan, the suburbs are good, but isn't it inconvenient sometimes? Besides, isn't this just so that you can stay closer to your parents? Lin Jai, that's right. Darling Yao Yao, let them make the decisions. There's no need for you to care so much about it, Grandpa Lin, we really can't buy this house. Barely after Yao said those words, Lin Jiej saw her mother pushing her thigh harshly once more. Yao pursed her lips, but she didn't stop there. Instead, she stared at Grandpa Lin and continued. Grandpa Lin, I know that you're doing this out of goodwill, but there's really no need for this house. In any case, this time, it wasn't just her mother who was doing this. Even her father was secretly rubbing Yao's thigh, reminding her to shut up. Yao's words were silenced by her father's kick. Roughly 3 seconds later, she moved her lips once more, but this time, before she could say anything, her mother had already slapped her thigh. Seeing all of this, Lin Jiej couldn't hold himself back any longer, and he casually asked, "Aren't we going to eat?" Lin Gubei, indeed. The dishes have already been served, so hurry up and eat. If you don't, it won't taste good when it gets cold. Grandpa Lin, that's right. Let's eat. We can talk about the house after we eat. With old Master Lin's words, everyone at the table no longer brought up the matter of the house. Everyone picked up their chopsticks and ate while chatting about all sorts of topics. Lin Jiej and Shi Yao were very quiet. Neither of them joined the conversation, and neither of them took the initiative to speak to the other. While the two of them seemed to be enjoying their meal very naturally, Shi Yao had her own worries in her heart while Lin Jiej had his own plans in mind. Halfway through, Lin Jiej, Grandpa Lin suddenly felt. As Lin thought of Jiej, Zhang Sal's Lin Jiej medicine, the same. Lin, he is, Lin, he, as, he, I. Lin as, he, Lin is, Lin. Lin, he. Chapter 697. Shortly after Andy's son said those words, a waiter swiftly walked in with a cup of hot water. Just as the waiter was about to walk up to Grandpa Lin, Andy's son straightened her back, and before the waiter could place the cup on the table, she had already stretched out her hand to receive it. From start to finish, the waiter had no intention of placing the cup on the table. Instead, he passed it straight to Auntie Sunday. The two of them held the cup for about 30 seconds before they separated. The waiter politely took half a step back and bowed slightly to Auntie's son before leaving. Lin Jiej could clearly see the waiter's right hand clenched tightly into a fist. Auntie's son passed the cup of hot water to Grandpa Lin, and Grandpa Lin symbolically drank half a mouthful of it. After which, he seemed to have recovered from his earlier shock, and he shot a glance at Auntie Sunday. Auntie's son calmly nodded at Grandpa Lin, and after which, Grandpa Lin continued eating as if nothing had happened. Roughly 5 minutes later, Grandpa Lin glanced at the empty cup in front of him and asked, "HM? There's no more juice." Auntie's son hurriedly replied, "I'll get someone to bring it over right now." Following which, Auntie's son called for the waiter. The juice was freshly squeezed, and roughly 10 minutes later, the waiter returned with the freshly divided cups of juice. First, she placed the fruit juices in front of everyone one by one. Then, she took away the used glasses in front of them one by one. Before leaving the compartment, she politely asked, "Is there anything else I can help you with?" Grandpa Lin pointed to the bottom of the crab tofu in front of him and said, "This tofu isn't too bad. Give me another serving." "Yes, Grandpa Lin," the waiter replied respectfully before backing out of the compartment. Lin Jiej knew that the fruit juice in front of him and Shi Yao had been tampered with. He also knew that since his grandfather had arranged everything, there was bound to be a way for him and Shi Yao to drink all of the fruit juice into their stomachs. Feigning ignorance, he continued eating his meal unhurriedly. Roughly 3 to 4 minutes later, Grandpa Lin suddenly suggested for everyone to have a toast of juice instead of wine. Lin Jiej, it turned out that he had been thinking too much into it. The method his grandfather used to get him and Shi Yao to drink the fruit juice was so simple that he didn't even need to use his brain at all. Naturally, no one would reject old Mr. Lin's suggestion. Everyone at the table stopped talking, stopped moving their chopsticks, and picked up their fruit juice glasses. After clinking glasses, everyone raised their heads and drank. Including Shi Yao. Lifting the blanket, Lin Jiej watched from the corner of his eye as Shi Yao gulped down more than half of the problematic fruit juice. Only then did he retract his gaze, tilted his head back, and gulped down more than half of the fruit juice as well. After putting down their glasses, everyone chatted as they ate for a while. Then, old Mr. Lin invited everyone to toast. Just like that, in less than 10 minutes, Yao's juice had already been emptied. After putting down his cup, Grandpa Lin glanced at Yao's empty cup before turning to Auntie Sun and asking, "Right, where's the dish I added? Why isn't it here yet?" "Auntie Sun, old mister, I'll rush them right away." As she spoke, Auntie Sun called for a waiter. Chapter 698. "Ah!" the attendant exclaimed in shock before quickly grabbing a napkin and wiping away the dirt on Yao's clothes in a fluster. At the same time, she frantically apologized. I'm sorry. Yao had always been a gentle and adorable person. Since the waitress was already so frightened, she naturally wouldn't hold it against her. "It's fine, I'll do it myself." Lin Jiej, who had always been a germaphobe, glanced at the oil stains on his clothes and frowned. However, he didn't make things too difficult for the waitress. When the waitress reached out with a napkin to wipe his clothes, he quickly rejected her and said, "There's no need for that." The waitress took 2 steps back and apologized profusely. "I'm really sorry. I'll make sure to make up for the spilled food, that's not a problem," Old Master Lin said. "But their clothes are so dirty. It's too outrageous. Do you have a place to clean them up?" The waitress replied, "Yes, we do. I'll go get the room card right now and bring Sir and young mistress upstairs to clean them up. As for their dirty clothes, I'll send them to the concierge for dry cleaning, and they'll be sent over immediately. Sir and young mistress will only need to rest in the room for a while." Hearing the waitress's suggestion, Grandpa Lin seemed to be very satisfied with the way she had handled the situation, and he nodded his head silently. After apologizing a few more times, the waitress quickly backed out of the suite. Less than 3 minutes later, she hurriedly returned. "I've already instructed the kitchen to make up for the crab tofu. Here's the room card, and I've already asked the front desk to book the best suite available. However, there's a conference going on here today, so there aren't any extra rooms available. This is the only room we have left." Before Yao and Lin Jiej could react, Grandpa Lin had already spoken up. "It's just a simple borrowing, so there's no need to be so particular about it." Since Grandpa Lin had already said so, Yao and Lin Jiej didn't have any objections. "I'll be bringing the 2 of you upstairs then," the waitress politely replied before gesturing for Yao and Lin Jiej to follow her. It was only after Yao and the waitress had taken a few steps that Lin Jiej finally lifted his foot. Although there was nothing wrong with what had just happened, he knew that it was all part of his grandfather's plan. He had intentionally spilled the crab tofu, and there was no way that the rooms in the room were fully occupied. If not for the fact that he happened to overhear the conversation between his grandfather and Auntie Sun that night, he would have thought that everything that had happened today was perfectly normal. With this thought in mind, Lin Jiej raised his head to look at Yao, who was walking beside him. To her, this was just an accident. She would never have imagined that there was a trap behind this accident. By the time she woke up tomorrow, the rice would have already been cooked. She would no longer be the Yao she was today. Her menstrual cycle was at the end of the month, and her grandfather must have done some research in advance to calculate the date. The current her happened to be the most fertile period for her to conceive. If she were to get pregnant, it would truly be too late. She would probably never have another opportunity in her life. Chapter 699. Reining in his thoughts, Lin Jiej nodded to the attendant before taking the first step into the room. Yao followed closely behind him. As it was a suite, there were 2 washrooms, and Lin Jiej and Yao each used one. The attendant was waiting to take their clothes to the concierge to wash them. Lin Jiej's t-shirt was only stained with some oil. He entered the washroom in the living room, and after taking off his shirt, he opened the door slightly and threw his clothes out. After which, he locked the door from the inside and went to take a shower. Compared to Lin Jie, Shuryao's clothes were much more troublesome. Her sleeves, skirt, and hair were all stained with crab tofu. So, she ran into the bedroom, took off all her clothes, wrapped them in a bathrobe, and brought them over to the attendant. The attendant had already tidied up the clothes that Lin Jie had casually tossed onto the floor. After taking Shuryao's clothes, she passed the room key back to Shuryao and said softly, "Please wait here for a moment. I'll bring the clothes up in around an hour." Shuryao nodded with a smile. After watching the attendant leave, she returned to the washroom in the bedroom to wash her hair and take a shower. Shuryao's hair was long, so it was troublesome to wash it. On top of that, there were also many oil stains on it. It took her quite a while in the bathroom before she was finally clean. While she was standing in front of the sink to dry her hair, she suddenly felt a little dizzy and her body was burning up. Perhaps it was because she hadn't gotten enough sleep recently, or perhaps it was because she had been attending classes in the day and tutoring students in the night, or perhaps it was because she hadn't gotten enough sleep. She thought the temperature of the water was too high when she was showering, so she switched the hot air from the hairdryer to cold air and blew on her hair for a while. She realized the temperature of her body didn't decrease. Instead, it increased a lot. After she was done drying her hair, she put down the hairdryer. Through the mirror in front of her, she saw how reddened her face was. She reached out to pat her cheeks, only to realize that they were burning hot. So, she turned on the tap and filled it with cold water to wash her face. After regaining her senses a little, she dried her hair and walked out of the bathroom. In just a few short steps, Shuryao realized that her face and body were burning up once more. It didn't take long for her to feel incredibly thirsty, so she walked out of the bedroom with dizzy steps. Lin Jie was already done with his bath, and he was currently seated on the sofa. He was staring at the night view outside the window, seemingly deep in thought. His bathrobe was tightly wrapped around his body. Not a single inch of his skin was exposed. But for some reason, Shuryao didn't know what was wrong with her either. Just by staring at Lin Jie for a few seconds, she suddenly felt her mouth go dry. She hurriedly withdrew her gaze and rushed to the bar. She realized that her steps were wobbly. Not too far away, Lin Jie seemed to have a magnet attached to his body, drawing her in. She tried her best to restrain herself, but she soon realized that her body temperature was rising even higher. She subconsciously tugged on the collar of her towel before turning her gaze back to Lin Jie. She stared at him for a while, then uncontrollably walked towards him. He didn't notice her until she was right in front of him. His gaze, which was looking out the window, fell on her face. Chapter 700. The sweet fragrance that assaulted his nostrils and the unique softness of her body silenced Lin Jie in an instant. As if someone had struck his acupoints, his entire body stiffened for a moment before he slowly lowered his head to look at the girl in his embrace. Her consciousness was clearly a little dazed. She didn't realize that she had fallen at all, and her eyes that were staring at him were filled with confusion. Her face was extremely red. Through the bathrobe, Lin Jie could feel the heat on her body. Her breathing was very unstable, alternating between rapid and calm. Just by staring at Shuryao for half a minute, Lin Jie could already clearly feel a small flame burning in the depths of his body. The flame grew larger and larger, and eventually, it turned into a blazing inferno that was impossible to extinguish. Shuryao raised her head and stared at Lin Jie for a moment. She couldn't help but want to get closer to him. With such thoughts in mind, her hands were already pressing down on his thighs as she slowly propped up her limp body that had fallen into his embrace. He was sitting while she was standing, so she was slightly taller than him. She stared at his face for a moment before her lips moved. She gulped down a mouthful of saliva before slowly lowering her head to his face. As she inched closer and closer, Lin Jie could clearly feel her breath brushing against his nostrils. It was both warm and soft, causing him to hold his breath for a moment. Following which, he felt the corner of his lips softening, and the space between his lips and teeth was filled with her warmth and scent. Following which, his mind went completely blank, and he lost all ability to think. Her kiss was very clumsy. Or rather, it couldn't be considered a kiss. It was more like the reaction of the drug acting up and forcing her to do so. But even though it couldn't be considered a kiss, it still ignited the raging inferno in his body. When her lips left the corner of his lips and landed on his cheek, he tilted his head slightly to capture her lips and kissed her forcefully. Perhaps it was because she was drugged, but she felt weak all over. Not long after, her whole body went limp again. He quickly reached out and wrapped his arms around her waist. He flipped her over and pressed her down on the sofa. He lowered his head and kissed her again. His kiss was passionate and urgent, intensifying the effects of the drug in her body. It wasn't like he hadn't kissed her before, but in the past, she was always scared silly. But this time, she took the initiative to stretch out her two slender arms and wrap them around his neck. She raised her head to meet his, and there was even a sweet sound coming from her mouth. Although it was very subtle, it was enough to make his brain heat up and his blood flow speed up. He couldn't help but increase the intensity of his kiss. The room was very quiet, and from time to time, the sound of kissing could be heard. Lin Jie had no idea how much time had passed. All he knew was that just as his blood vessels were about to explode, he finally came to a stop. Then, he slowly pulled away from her lips. He lowered his head and stared at the dazed young lady for a moment before he reached out to grab two pills from the table and stuffed them into her mouth. Perhaps it was due to the bitterness of the pills, but just as she was about to spit them out, Lin Jie pressed his lips firmly against hers once more. Chapter 701. He didn't know how long he kissed her affectionately, but she gradually calmed down, and even her breathing calmed down. Lin Jie waited until she finally quietened down, and only when the hands that were tearing at his clothes fell away from his body did he slowly release her lips. She had already fallen asleep, and the scorching heat on her body was slowly receding. Her eyes that had been a moment ago had reverted back to her usual calm and peaceful self. He stared at her for a long time. Then he reached out and pulled up the bathrobe that she had torn off her body in her infatuation. Bit by bit, her fair skin was completely covered. He straightened his body, tidied up his messy bathrobe, and fastened the straps again. Then he bent over and carried her into the bedroom. He walked over to the bed, lifted the covers, and gently placed her on the bed. Then he pulled the covers over her and carefully covered her body. His gaze fell on her face again. He stared at her for a very, very long time before he finally reached out to tidy up her messy hair. Then, he stood up and left the bedroom. Before closing the door, he glanced at her through the gap of the door. He remained silent for a few seconds before closing the door and heading to the washroom. Coming out, he walked over to the counter and took out a bottle of cold water from the fridge. After twisting the cap off, he gulped down half of the bottle before pulling the towel hanging around his neck over his head to wipe his wet hair. When the water stopped dripping, he tossed the towel aside and walked over to the floor-to-ceiling window. Looking down at the thousands of lights in the bustling city, he calmed himself down. In the end, he still couldn't bring himself to do it. Even though he wanted her to become his more than anyone else, he still couldn't bring himself to do it. Even though that wicked thought had surfaced in his mind time and time again, he still couldn't bring himself to use such a method to obtain her. Perhaps, to her parents, to the Lin clan, and even to him, his grandfather's plan might be a good thing. But of all the good things that everyone was looking forward to, who would care about her? Who would ask her whether she was willing or not? She was a person, and her innocence was her own. Other than her, no one else could make a decision for her. Especially him. Not only could he not decide her life on his own, he had to respect her life. Because she was the girl he truly liked, and because he truly liked her, he had to do this. Because, even if the entire world became her enemy, he still had to stand by her side. Only then did he deserve to like her, and only then did he deserve to like her. In truth, he had already thought of doing this, hadn't he? Otherwise, he wouldn't have unintentionally overheard the conversation between his grandfather and Auntie's son that night and bought the medicine the next day. Otherwise, he wouldn't have swallowed the medicine the first time he went to the washroom to take a shower. He was afraid that he would really make a huge mistake. Even though he was looking forward to it more than anyone else. When Shiryao opened her eyes, she felt as if she had been asleep for 1,000 years. Chapter 702. Yesterday, she was clearly eating downstairs, and her clothes got dirty, so she came up to clean them up. After that, after her shower, she suddenly felt that something was amiss, and her entire body was burning up. Shiryao reached out to rub her head. She couldn't remember what had happened after that. She lay on the bed in a daze for a very long time before she pulled back the blanket and got out of bed. She first went to the bathroom to brush her teeth before walking out of the bedroom. The hotel room was very quiet, so she thought that she was alone. But when she walked over to the bar counter and grabbed a bottle of mineral water, before she could even open it and drink it, she caught sight of someone lying on the sofa not too far away from her from the corner of her eye. Her body trembled in fright, and the bottle of mineral water in her hand fell to the floor. Dong! The loud noise woke up Lin Jiej, who was sleeping on the sofa. Lin Jiej abruptly sat up and stared at Shiryao in a daze for a moment before he finally snapped out of it. He removed the towel covering his body and yawned. Then, he stood up and walked to the bathroom while greeting Shiryao, "Morning." It was only after Lin Jiej entered the bathroom and heard the sound of running water that Shiryao finally regained her senses. Last night. I wasn't the only one sleeping in this hotel room. Lin Jiej was there too. How did I manage to fall asleep last night? With such thoughts in mind, Shiryao took 2 steps toward the bathroom door. However, before she could reach the door, Lin Jiej had already finished washing up and was walking out. He glanced at her, and as if the unpleasant incident in the clubhouse hadn't happened at all, he asked with a natural tone, "What would you like to eat?" Before Shiryao could say a word, Lin Jiej had already walked over to the study table and picked up the hotel phone. "Porridge and buns, will that do?" Lin Jiej asked as he pressed on the number. Taking Shiryao's silence as a tacit agreement, he unhurriedly placed his order and hung up the phone. Only then did he raise his head to look at Shiryao, only to see that she was still standing in the same spot he had been standing at when he came out of the bathroom. He stared at her for a moment, and as if he could guess what she was thinking, he said, "You had a fever last night." Since her grandfather dared to do such a thing, he probably had a backup plan in mind. The medicine that Grandpa had given her had a hallucinogenic effect. When she woke up, she probably wasn't sure what had happened. Of course, he wasn't stupid enough to be honest with her, so he naturally came up with an excuse. Shiryao couldn't help but feel that something was amiss, but she couldn't figure out what was going on at the moment. Thus, after hearing Zhang Xian's words, she fell into deep thought for a moment before deciding to believe him. She said, "Oh," and then asked, "Last night, was it you?" She didn't finish her words, but Lin Jiej could roughly guess what was going on. You had a severe fever, so you went to sleep right after taking the medicine. They were worried about leaving you alone here, so they asked me to stay here to take care of you. They were all hoping for him to marry her, so there was no doubt that they would make him stay at such a good opportunity. Shi Yao didn't think that there was anything wrong with that, so she nodded and replied with an "oh." Seeing that she didn't doubt his words, Lin Jie asked meaningfully, "What about now? Are you feeling better?" Shi Yao hurriedly nodded her head, "I'm fine now." Lin Jie didn't linger on this topic for too long. After hearing her reply, he replied with a soft "mm." A moment later, he spoke up once more, "If I recall correctly, you don't have any lessons today. If you're free, why don't you eat something and accompany me somewhere?" Chapter 703. I remember that you don't have any lessons today. If you're free, why don't you eat something and accompany me somewhere? He was so angry the last time they met, but now, he was acting as if nothing had happened and asking her to accompany him somewhere. Shi Yao couldn't fathom Lin Jie's thoughts at all. She stared at him, and for a moment, she forgot to reply. Lin Jie waited for a moment, but seeing that Shi Yao still didn't show any signs of speaking, he added, "Can't I?" Shi Yao hurriedly reined in her thoughts and shook her head at Lin Jie. "It's fine." 2 seconds later, Shi Yao asked once more, "Is something the matter? Where are we going?" Shi Yao asked 2 questions in a row, but Lin Jie didn't answer either of them. Instead, he replied nonchalantly, "You'll know when we get there." Shi Yao didn't say anything else. She stood on the spot for a moment before gesturing for Lin Jie to head to the bathroom to wash her face and comb her hair. By the time she was done, the waiter had already delivered the food Lin Jie had ordered, along with their dirty clothes from the night before. After breakfast, Lin Jie and Shi Yao didn't linger in the room for too long. They checked out and left the hotel. Lin Jie had driven his car over yesterday, and before heading downstairs, he had given the front desk a call, so someone had already brought his car to the entrance. Thus, as soon as Lin Jie and Shi Yao stepped out of the restaurant, they immediately got into the car. Lin Jie and Shi Yao didn't talk much, so the car was very quiet. Other than the low-volume music coming from the radio, there was no other sound. The Peking Hotel was located in the busiest area in the city, and it was also where the traffic was the highest. Lin Jie stepped on the accelerator and the brake, and even after half an hour of driving, they only managed to get from the second ring to the third ring. An hour later, as the car was driving out of the fifth ring and heading out of the city, Shi Yao couldn't help but ask, "Where are we going?" Lin Jie didn't reply. Instead, he continued driving forward. About half a minute after she said that, he turned his head to look at her and answered her without answering her question. "We'll be there in about an hour." Shi Yao replied with an "oh," and the car fell silent once more. Perhaps it was because she hadn't slept enough last night, or perhaps it was because the car was too quiet, but she felt a little bored. Leaning against the back of the car, she stared out the window for a while before falling asleep once more. When she woke up again, the car had stopped. Seated in the driver's seat, Lin Jie was currently looking at his phone. He sensed her movements and glanced at her before putting away his phone. "You're awake." Before Shi Yao could say anything, he had already pushed open the car door and said, "It's about time. Let's go for lunch." By the time Shi Yao alighted from the car, she realized that Lin Jie had brought her to a farmhouse, and she had been to this farmhouse before. It was the same farmhouse where Lin Jie had invited her to Mountain Changming for lunch after her final examinations. This was the place that Lin Jie wanted her to accompany him to. A slight frown formed on Shi Yao's forehead as she followed Lin Jie into the farmhouse. A waiter walked over to welcome them, but before he could lead them to their seats, Lin Jie had already pointed to a seat by the window and asked, "Will that do?" The waiter nodded. It was only after Shi Yao sat down that she suddenly recalled that the last time she and Lin Jie came here for lunch, they had also sat at this seat. Chapter 704. Just what in the world is Lin Jiej thinking? Just as Shuyao was perplexed, the waiter finally brought the menu over. Unlike before, Lin Jiej didn't push the menu over to Shuyao for her to order. Instead, he flipped through the menu and read out the names of the dishes. It wasn't a weekend, so there weren't many people at the farmhouse. Thus, the dishes were swiftly served. It was only when Shuyao picked up her chopsticks and started eating all of the dishes on the table that she suddenly realized that Lin Jiej had ordered all of the dishes that she had ordered with him the last time around without missing a single one of them. Lin Jiej. Why is he doing this? Biting on her chopsticks, Shuyao discreetly raised her head to look at Lin Jiej. Even though this wasn't a high-class restaurant and there wasn't any need for formalities, the way he ate was still incomparably elegant. Shuyao knew that this was the kind of upbringing he had cultivated from a young age. It was the kind of temperament that most people wouldn't be able to catch up to even if they tried for many years. His flawlessly exquisite face didn't reveal much of his emotions, but Shuyao couldn't help but feel that there was something strange about the Lin Jiej today. As she ate, she discreetly scanned him from head to toe. Even when they were done with their meal, she still couldn't find any clues about him. After paying the bill, Lin Jiej returned to his car from the farmhouse and continued driving toward the suburbs. Roughly 20 minutes later, he finally drove into the parking lot of the Mountain Changming Scenic Area. The last time they were here, it was early summer, and the entire mountain was filled with lush greenery. Now that it was autumn, the mountain was filled with red leaves and yellow leaves, but the scenery seemed even more beautiful than before. Just like the last time, the two of them didn't take the tourist bus up the mountain. Instead, they slowly walked along the ancient stone path. When they passed by a water vending machine by the roadside, Lin Jiej took out a few coins from his pocket and bought a bottle of water for her. Even though it was already autumn, the afternoon sun was still a little strong. Passing by a few stalls, Lin Jiej bought an umbrella to help her block the sun. When they passed by a small waterfall, Lin Jiej asked Shuyao if she wanted to take a photo. Halfway up the mountain, they arrived at the wishing tree, which was filled with red ropes, and Lin Jiej brought Shuyao there to make another wish. Not too long after they reached the halfway point, Lin Jiej called for the tourist bus and drove Shuyao up the mountain. Just like last time, it was dusk when they reached the top of the mountain. Standing on the observation deck, Shuyao and Lin Jiej were admiring the beautiful scenery of the setting sun. It was only then that Shuyao realized something was amiss. Today, Lin Jiej had brought her to do the exact same thing that they had done at Mountain Changming the last time. What was going on with him? With this thought in mind, Shuyao turned to look at Lin Jiej. He stared unblinkingly at the slowly setting sun in front of him. From his expression, he seemed to be admiring the beautiful scenery, but also seemed to be thinking about something. Even so, after staring at Lin Jiej for a moment, Shuyao couldn't help but admit that compared to the beautiful autumn sun setting in the west, Lin Jiej's face seemed to be superior. Shuyao stared at Lin Jiej's side profile for a long while before she realized that her thoughts had drifted away. She quickly organized her thoughts, and just as she was about to retract her gaze, she noticed that there was something amiss with Lin Jiej's expression. Her gaze subconsciously paused. However, when she took a closer look, he had already returned to his usual elegant and aloof self. Was she imagining things? Chapter 705. After descending from the observation deck, just as Shuyao had guessed, Lin Jiej brought her to the same open-air restaurant where they had dinner the previous time. They were seated at the same spot as before. At the center of the 3-meter-long dining table was a bouquet of fresh flowers and a candlestick with 9 lit candles. Even the waiter was the same one who had served them the previous time. As soon as they were seated, he asked the same question as before, "Mr. Lin, may I know if we should serve the dishes now?" Lin Jiej was still as taciturn as ever. He nodded slightly, indicating that it was fine. With a smile, the waiter replied with a, "All right," before taking his leave. Not too long later, the waiter pushed a trolley over to serve the dishes. Looking at the dishes that were identical to the previous time, Yao's gaze eventually fell on the sweet and sour ribs closest to her. She remembered clearly that this was the very first dish that caught her eye that day. Just as she was about to pick up some food with her chopsticks, she suddenly noticed that something was amiss, so she raised her head and asked, Didn't you say summer camp? Where are the others?" If not for the fact that she knew that everything that had happened was real, she would have thought that it was all a dream. A moment later, Yao's gaze finally moved from the sweet and sour ribs to Lin Jiej's face. However, the words that came out of her mouth were different from the last time. "Lin Jiej, what's wrong?" Lin Jiej didn't respond. Just like before, he was ladling soup into a golden porcelain bowl for her. When he placed the bowl of soup in front of her, Yao asked once more, Why did you do what you did at Mountain Changming all over again? This is fish soup. The fish is freshly slaughtered, so it's especially delicious. Have a taste." Under Yao's relentless questioning, Lin Jiej finally retracted his hand from the bowl of soup and raised his head to look at Yao. Just like that day, the flickering candlelight reflected in his eyes, accentuating his dashing aura. Lin. Yao could tell that Lin Jiej was intentionally changing the topic. But barely after she said a word, he interrupted her once more. "These dishes are all specially prepared by the chefs here. Have a taste, they're all quite delicious." Yao opened her mouth, wanting to say something. This time, before she could say a single word, Lin Jiej had already picked up some vegetables and placed them on her plate. At the same time, he spoke up once more. "It's cold now, and food outside will cool down quickly. You should eat it while it's hot." Yao stared at the mountain of delicacies on her plate, and it didn't take long for her to move her lips. However, in the end, she chose not to say anything. Instead, she replied with a, "Thank you," before picking up her chopsticks. Seeing her move her chopsticks, he followed suit. Climbing the mountain in the afternoon had sapped a lot of her stamina, so she was starting to feel a little hungry. After filling her stomach, she realized that Lin Jiej had at some point in time put down his chopsticks and was staring intently at her through the flickering candlelight. Even though it was a little dark outside, making it difficult for her to see the expression in his eyes, she could sense that he had a lot of things he wanted to tell her. However, before she had a chance to speak, he said, "Are you full?" Yao nodded lightly. Chapter 706. What is it? Seeing that Lin Jiej had gotten up, Yao stood up as well. Lin Jiej didn't respond to her question. Instead, he slowed down his footsteps so that she could keep up with him. On their way out of the restaurant, the waiter who escorted them passed a bag to Lin Jiej. Yao thought that it was a small gift from the restaurant, so she didn't think too much of it. Following by Lin Jiej's side, they walked along a path filled with all kinds of wildflowers on both sides of the mountain. It took them a long time before they finally arrived at the entrance of a hotel located at the top of the mountain. The hotel didn't register Lin Jiej and Yao's identities. After verifying Lin Jiej's identity, the waiter handed him a room card. There was no waiter to lead them to the entrance of the hotel, and as if he had been here before, Lin Jiej led Yao through a long corridor with great familiarity. After walking for a while, they finally stopped in front of a small wooden villa with its back facing the cliff. Lin Jiej swiped the room card, but he wasn't in a hurry to enter. Instead, he shot a glance at Yao. Yao knew that Lin Jiej was signaling for her to enter. After a moment of hesitation, she took 2 steps forward and pushed the door open. The windows of the hotel room were open, and the night breeze blew in from the top of the mountain. Feeling a little chilly, Shiryao shivered slightly. She was just about to continue walking in when Lin Jiej suddenly called out, "Wait a moment." Shiryao turned around and saw Lin Jiej taking out a woolen shawl from the small bag given to him by the waiter. After which, he wrapped the shawl around Shiryao's body. She was stunned for a moment before Lin Jiej raised his chin slightly toward the room behind him, indicating for her to continue walking in. Shiryao turned around and switched on the lights in the room with the help of the light from the corridor. After which, she walked a short distance into the room before coming to a halt. How is this a hotel room? It's practically a kingdom of snacks. Every corner of the room was filled with all kinds of snacks. There were jellies, lollipops, chocolates, white rabbit creations, potato chips. Other than the narrow path in the middle, the entire room was filled with snacks that Shiryao had eaten before, some she hadn't, and some she couldn't name. She turned to look at Lin Jiej. Lin Jiej was still standing at the entrance, looking at her. Although he didn't say anything, she could tell from his eyes that he wanted her to continue walking. Shiryao turned around and walked past the snacks to the balcony outside the hotel. As if someone had sealed her acupoints, she stared at the wooden model that was 1 meter in length and 1 meter in width on the balcony in astonishment. It was a house. The tiles were made of biscuits, the bed was in the shape of marshmallows, the floor was covered with chocolate, the cabinets were candy houses, the decorations on the walls were strawberries and pineapples, the sofa was covered with cakes, yogurt flowed out of the tap, ice cream was in the fridge, and the gravel road was paved with nuts. Although the whole model and everything was fake, it was very realistic. It was no different from the snacks she usually ate. Colorful lights were hung all around the house. They twinkled and looked exceptionally exquisite. This had always been her dream, so how did Lin Jiej know about it? How did he do it? You're tuning into the LoveLore Library YouTube channel. We're so grateful for your support, and don't forget to subscribe to join us on this incredible journey through captivating stories. Your generosity through donations truly makes a world of difference, as it's the primary source of revenue that allows me to expand and enhance this channel for you. Thank you from the bottom of my heart for being a part of this adventure.